such matters. What concerns him more is how to navigate his future alongside Li Shimin. He intends to seize the opportunity to eliminate Shui Wanqie. Li Shimin's intentions are clear. He seeks to incite chaos against Shui Wanqie, all while maintaining the facade of righteousness, aiming to drive him to madness before taking action. Master. Someone has arrived from the palace, a servant announces. Cheng Chumo rises to greet them. The visitor is a palace maid who, after bowing, states, "The Empress will host a banquet in the back garden 3 days hence at noon, inviting all princes and princesses." I understand. Once the maid departs, Cheng Chumo falls silent. Has this begun? The following day, Princess Danyang returns to her fief, this time dressed even more lightly. Cheng Chumo is momentarily captivated, swallowing hard. Could you perhaps wear a bit more? He laments, this is far too provocative. The rumors are inconsequential. If something were to transpire between him and Princess Danyang, he would face severe repercussions, perhaps even exile. With a smug expression, Princess Danyang retorts, "I shall wear as I please. What will you do about it? If you dare, hang me up." She glances toward a distant tree, contemplating the thrill of being suspended. I would like to try that. Chapter 28. Selling the Princess. Cheng Chumo was oblivious to Princess Danyang's thoughts. However, he already had a plan in mind. Wasn't it merely a way to provoke Shui Wanqie? There was no need for self-sacrifice. A more ingenious method existed. With a mischievous grin, he gazed at Princess Danyang, who felt a chill run down her spine. What was he up to? Gather! Cheng Chumo shouted, commanding the special forces to assemble. Once gathered, Xiaozhu approached with a piece of beef tendon. Cheng Chumo pointed at Princess Danyang and declared, "Bind her. How dare Shui Wanqie harm me? Does he think I, Cheng Chumo, am easy to bully?" Recalling past grievances, he found this excuse could be used indefinitely. Xiaozhu excitedly complied. Binding a princess was not something just anyone would dare to do. Princess Danyang found herself tightly bound as Cheng Chumo carried her straight to Chang'an. With a red scarf covering her head, no one could discern her identity. Cheng Chumo bellowed, "Come one, come all. Behold the most beautiful woman. Not 998, not 888, just 500 guan. First come, first served." Dazed, Princess Danyang stood frozen, too fearful to cry out, knowing that speaking would reveal her identity. Her predicament was beyond mere injustice. The onlookers were utterly astonished. Was this truly the legendary Cheng the Fool? Did he dare to sell himself? Of course, Cheng Chumo did not genuinely intend to sell her. This spectacle was meant for Li Shimin and Shui Wanqie, serving as proof of his innocence concerning Princess Danyang and driving Shui Wanqie to madness, indirectly infuriating Li Shimin in the process. The palace was in disarray. The audacity of Cheng Chumo selling Princess Danyang was scandalous. Surprisingly, Li Shimin did not express anger. After all, the Tang dynasty had an abundance of princesses. He sat leisurely in the hall of governance, chatting with Empress Changsun. I did not expect Cheng the Fool to be so extraordinary, he mused. Empress Changsun shot him a disapproving glance. This is all you're doing. Cheng Chumo is going to great lengths to prove his worth to Changlu. She firmly believed their daughter would find happiness. Cheng Chumo was a man of action rather than words. What would Li Ji think of this maneuver? In the future, no one would dare to slander Cheng Chumo. Even the enchanting Princess Danyang could not tempt him. Just then, a eunuch rushed in. Another incident has occurred. Li Shimin remained unperturbed. The eunuch continued. The prince has sold Princess Danyang to the Cheng family. Li Shimin erupted, spitting out his tea in shock. Bring that scoundrel to me. The eunuch hurried off to fetch Cheng Chumo. Empress Changsun remained in stunned silence, murmuring, how foolish. He could have made a statement without truly selling her. Meanwhile, Cheng Chumo had returned to the Cheng residence, where Cui Shi and the children awaited Princess Danyang's arrival. Upon hearing that Cheng Chumo had sold her to the Cheng family, she fainted. Fetch me paper and ink. Cheng Chumo instructed the steward, who hurriedly complied. Knowing he could not write in traditional characters, Cheng Chumo handed the brush to Princess Danyang. Write the contract of sale. Princess Danyang refused, but Cheng Chumo threatened. Why has no one cared for you all this time? Do you still have any illusions? If you do not write, I shall sell you to someone else. The palace maid finally witnessed the frightening lengths to which Cheng Chumo would go. Hesitant yet resolute, she took the brush and penned the contract of sale. This was the legendary act of selling oneself. Once completed, Cheng Chumo blew on the paper and urged, now, write your name. Princess Danyang picked up the brush, cautioning, are you certain? Once I inscribe my name, this matter will no longer be trivial, and you shall face consequences. She was well aware of Cheng Chumo's motives. As a victim, no one would dare speak ill of her, and she would elicit sympathy as a princess so cruelly wronged. Cheng Chumo nodded, and Princess Danyang wrote her name. Just then, the eunuch entered, but it was too late. She had already finished. There was no choice but to escort Cheng Chumo back to the palace to report to Li Shimin. Upon their arrival, they bowed in respect. Greetings, Father Emperor, greetings. Mother Empress, Cheng Chumo said. Li Shimin's expression darkened, his face resembling a stormy sky. The atmosphere was stifling. Do you wish for death? He demanded. Cheng Chumo's actions had crossed a line, jeopardizing the royal family's reputation. Empress Changsun attempted to intercede, but was silenced by Li Shimin. Guanyin maid, do not speak. This boy must be dealt with. Hearing this, Empress Changsun sighed in relief. Li Shimin had not threatened death, which was a small mercy. Princess Danyang collapsed into Empress Changsun's embrace, lamenting her plight. Li Shimin's heart softened. He could no longer exploit this sister of his, for her suffering was too great. He turned to Qing Chumo. Come with me. They retreated to the garden, where Li Shimin inquired, why not employ a different method? Qing Chumo scratched his head, failing to conceive an alternative. Li Shimin smacked the back of his head, finding release in the act. Qing Chumo fell to the ground, struggling to recover. Once upright, he protested, Father Emperor, if you hit me like that, my head won't function properly. Li Shimin scoffed, you devised a plan to sell a princess. And you claim your head is not functioning? You are quite clever. This was a light punishment. Be silent. You are not merely irritating Xue Wanqie. You are vexing me. If I do not punish you, my rage will not subside. Qing Chumo rubbed his head, adopting a nonchalant demeanor. Father Emperor, why be angry? I acted on your wishes. Besides, I did not sell her to someone else. We have not lost anything. Li Shimin found himself laughing in anger. Not lost anything. Qing Chumo produced the contract of sale, his excitement palpable. Will Xue Wanqie go mad? They had drawn attention to Xue Wanqie's actions. Li Shimin, no longer concealing his thoughts, examined the contract and remarked, this is insufficient. Your mother wishes to host a gathering. Let him drink a few more cups. You should be closer to Danyang. Qing Chumo thought to himself how cunning his father was, devising such a ruthless scheme. Father Emperor, you truly are remarkable. I am in awe of your ingenuity. With a swift motion, Li Shimin struck Qing Chumo, delivering a kick to his backside. Qing Chumo yelped in surprise. After tiring from the exertion, Li Shimin took a deep breath, feeling refreshed. Get up, he commanded, hands clasped behind his back. Qing Chumo rose and distanced himself slightly, thinking, feigning ignorance is exhausting. This beating was truly a loss. You shall spend a few days in prison. When the Empress visits, I will release you. Qing Chumo shook his head. I cannot go there. I have been to the Special Forces selection, and that place is unfit for human habitation. Li Shimin discerned Qing Chumo's reluctance. It is a government prison. You shall not suffer. If you do not spend a few days there, the officials will surely protest. Qing Chumo reluctantly agreed. Bring him in. Qing Chumo has tarnished the royal reputation. Imprison him in the dungeon. The eunuch acknowledged the command. Qing Chumo followed the eunuch to the dungeon, filled with regret. Li Shimin had deceived him, claiming that the conditions in the dungeon were tolerable, yet the stench was unbearable, far from any semblance of comfort. Even the rats refused to venture here. Qing was led into a solitary cell, but fortunately, it had a window. As the eunuch prepared to leave, Qing called out to him, requesting a favor. The eunuch, flattered by the title of Your Highness, feigned modesty while internally reveling in the praise. What may I assist you with, Your Highness? I shall do my utmost, he replied. Qing expressed his desires at length, and after some contemplation, the eunuch deemed it feasible. Upon his return, he brought with him thousands of red bricks and skilled craftsmen. They began constructing walls, partitioning Qing's cell, and even furnished it with a bed and a table. Concerned that Qing might grow bored, the eunuch procured several books for him. Are you satisfied, Your Highness? The eunuch inquired with a smile. Qing expressed his gratitude profusely. Chapter 29. Preparing to establish an ironworks during the morning court session. The ministers feigned ignorance while knowing full well that Qing Chumo had sold Princess Danyang. Yet, they remained silent. Their disdainful glances shifted towards Xue Wanqie, viewing him as a pitiful figure who, despite having his wife sold, dared not protest. They regarded Li Shimin, whose countenance betrayed his displeasure. The ministers held him in contempt, recognizing that he was merely performing for show. Everyone was aware that Xue Wanqie's time was limited, with the noble families eagerly awaiting his demise. His attempt to poison Xue Wanqing sealed his fate, unlike Chang Sun Chong, who had the backing of influential relatives. Li Shimin turned to Xue Wanqie, stating, I shall take this matter under my command. Qing Chumo has already been imprisoned. Xue Wanqie bowed in gratitude, and the ministers exchanged knowing looks. Princess Danyang remained unseen. For as long as no one spoke of her in court, her fate would remain concealed, a classic case of self-deception. Wei Jing spoke up. The market has seen a surge in paper, all thanks to Prince Cheng's efforts. May your majesty bestow a reward. Li Shimin nodded, his smile returning. He had promised Cheng that should the paper venture succeed, he would grant him a barony. Indeed, Cheng's initiative benefits the nation and the people. He shall be granted a barony, he declared. Your majesty, this cannot be, interjected Kong Yingda. Only military merit warrants nobility. Kong continued, emphasizing that no title should be conferred without martial accomplishment, a principle established by Li Shimin to curb the proliferation of noble titles. The blame lay not with Li Shimin, but with Li Yuan, whose policies favored sharing power with the aristocracy, leading to an abundance of titles, with the heads of noble families often holding the rank of dukes. At this moment, only Kong Yingda opposed the notion, while the noble ministers remained silent, reluctant to provoke a confrontation. Changsun Wujin feigned ignorance. As the noble families had recently diverted attention from Qing Chumo, not wishing to attract trouble, Kong Yingdao realized that he had miscalculated. Recalling the last time he had been so enraged that he nearly bled. What would Cheng do if he knew that Kong had thwarted his elevation to a barony? He longed to retract his statement, but could not save face. His cheeks flushed with embarrassment. What you say is entirely correct, Minister Kong, Li Shimin affirmed. Kong's eyes widened in disbelief. Shall we not discuss this further? I merely offered a suggestion. Your Majesty, Kong sought to recover his stance. But Li Shimin denied him the opportunity. It was evident that Li Shimin had outmaneuvered him. The situation did not require Chung to instigate a confrontation. Cheng Yaojin would undoubtedly confront Kong Yingdao with his axe. In the modern context, the paper-making endeavor may seem trivial, yet in this era, it was an unprecedented endeavor. Granting a duke title seemed reasonable, let alone a mere 9th-rank barony. Titles were ranked from 9 levels, with the baron being the lowest and the duke the highest. At that moment, Chung remained unaware that his barony was slipping away. In the dungeon, he indulged in a feast. A group of guards brought chickens and ducks to his cell, and the environment had improved, devoid of any foul odors, even surpassing the guards' homes. They tentatively offered him food, and to their surprise, Chung invited them to join him. This positive beginning encouraged them to visit him more frequently. Prince Chung, I have a rather risque book. Would you care to read it? One guard asked. The title alone suggested its questionable nature, yet Chung nodded in approval. Xiaozhu arrived at the cell, prompting the guards to discreetly depart. She carried a notebook to report the day's developments. Both the red bricks and paper have begun to yield profits. Should we consider expansion? Chung shook his head, stating, we cannot hang our fortunes on a single tree. These two industries are not particularly lucrative. We should merely transition through them. The most profitable venture is the minting of currency. How much do we currently possess? Chung inquired. 9,000 guan, came the reply. A considerable sum that many dukes could not amass. Bring me paper and pen, Chung instructed. As Xiaozhu handed them over, he began to sketch. The result was far from professional, but it was legible. Upon completion, Chung felt a surge of pride. Indeed, modern knowledge had its advantages. He reasoned that with this plan for an ironworks, 9,000 guan would suffice. Xiaozhu agreed, but pondered what would happen if it fell short. The ironworks is a bottomless pit, and returns are slow, Xiaozhu cautioned. The investment is substantial, and short-term gains are hardly visible. The variables are too numerous. Chung remained resolute, insisting that establishing the ironworks was essential. Without it, how could they produce weapons? Special forces could not be deemed worthy without adequate arms. What constituted special forces? They were tasked with executing specialized operations, such as decapitation missions. How could one carry out such actions wielding only a heavy sword? It was impractical. Chung had witnessed the inadequacies during the capture of Li Jia. While the machete was formidable, it was ill-suited for special operations due to its weight. Special forces required equipment that was both lethal and lightweight to enable swift advances and rapid retreats. Do not concern yourself with trivial matters. Money can always be earned anew. Focus on the long-term vision, Chung patiently explained. Xiaozhu felt a mix of surprise and unease at Cheng's kindness. She was more accustomed to him threatening her with a dagger for insubordination. After her departure, Chung found himself restless in his cell. Imprisonment was dreadfully dull. With little to occupy his time aside from sleep, he crafted a mask to pass the time and ventured out to engage others in conversation. The dungeon housed those deemed traitors, and the nature of their crimes was often trivial. What truly defined a good official, and what constituted a corrupt one? It was all the same in the end. Those who conform to the prevailing trends are deemed virtuous officials, while those who act against the tide are labeled as wicked, or even corrupt. What crime have you committed to end up here? Chung Chumo inquired, standing outside a cell. The man within was gaunt, sketching something on the ground. He glanced up at Chung Chumo before resuming his drawing. I'm asking you a question, Chung pressed. The man remained unresponsive, igniting Cheng's fury. He swung the cell door open. Dare to ignore me? You'll regret it. A guard hastily approached to unlock the door, and Chung stormed in, seizing the man. Why are you here? Chung threatened, ready to beat him if he remained silent, to teach him who was in charge of the cell. Unfazed, the man appeared resigned to his fate. What was there to fear in a beating when he had already accepted death? Sensing that intimidation was futile, Chung decided to switch tactics. The more the man withheld information, the more Chung yearned to uncover it. He dragged him back to his own cell and tossed him onto the ground. You have guts, Chung remarked, then offered him a roast chicken from the table. Eat. The man, not one to refuse, devoured the chicken hungrily. After a moment, he spoke, his voice slightly stuttered from disuse. I have been imprisoned here for 3 years. Thank you for the chicken. Chung continued to probe for more details, prompting the man to open up. His name was Sun He, a resident of Henei. When drought struck Henei during Li Yuan's reign, he reported the truth but was dismissed as alarmist and imprisoned in the dungeons. Before Li Yuan could punish him, Li Shimin executed the Xuanwu Gate incident, leaving him incarcerated until now. It was difficult to assess his situation. On one hand, Li Shimin's coup indirectly saved him. Yet on the other, he had languished in prison for 3 years during the most enlightened era of the Tang dynasty. Chapter 30. The Father's Extravagance. The Son's Poverty. The two conversed until parched. Chung Chumo took a sip of water and reclined on the bed, while Sun He continued sketching on the floor. Chung leaned to observe. What are you drawing? Sun He's face lit up with pride as he replied, a volley of arrows. Chung was taken aback. Recalling a scene from a television show where his father, Chung Yaojin, had been struck by a volley of arrows. Is it the kind depicted on television? Please elaborate. Intrigued, Chung sat up attentively. Sun He was unreserved, confident that only he could create such a masterpiece. After listening, Chung asked, could you make the volley smaller? Perhaps the size of a human head? Sun He grinned with satisfaction. If I can make it large, I can certainly make it small. Not a problem at all. Chung's heart soared with delight. He had been troubled by the lack of equipment for his special forces, and now, fortune had smiled upon him. He rose, donned a mask, and exited the cell to inquire among the other prisoners about their skills. After questioning several, he found them mostly to be scholars, with a few martial figures, yet none piqued his interest. Why is there only one specialist? He shook his head in disappointment. Come here. A guard approached. What does the Duke command? Chung expressed his desire to see His Majesty, wishing to exonerate Sun He. I must see His Majesty. Please relay my request. The guard went to the palace to convey the message. Upon returning, he was accompanied by a eunuch. Chung followed the eunuch to the hall of governance, bowing deeply. Your son pays his respects to His Majesty. Li Shimin was engrossed in reviewing memorials, not looking up. What is it? Chung asked, are you aware of Sun He? Li Shimin could hardly be expected to know of Sun He. Ignoring Chung, he continued his work. Chung persisted. He has been imprisoned by the former emperor for 3 years, and I wish to secure his release. Impossible, Li Shimin flatly rejected. If he could be released, he would have been. When the amnesty was declared, he was excluded. Why? Because he was the last official appointed by Li Yuan. Li Shimin had taken the throne from his father and was unwilling to overturn his decisions. Undeterred, Cheng Chumo was determined to secure Sun He's release. Father, he can create the volley of arrows. Li Shimin remained unmoved. The concept held little value. Serving primarily for defense and with limited efficacy, hundreds of arrows launched simultaneously would have a low hit rate. When Li Shimin refused to yield, Chung pressed on, causing the emperor to grow increasingly irritated. Leave. Go find the former emperor if you wish to release him. Chung bowed and exited, pondering where to locate the former emperor. The Greaton Palace. Having moved from the Taiji Palace less than 6 months prior, Li Yuan resided in the northernmost Greaton Palace of the imperial city. Chung wandered through the palace grounds, enchanted by the melodious chirping of birds and fragrant blossoms, where many women and children gathered. He pointed at a young boy. Come here. The boy paused, astonished that someone dared to speak to him in such a manner. His face flushed with anger. Chung glared. Do you wish to be punished? The mention of punishment frightened the boy, who glanced around for allies but found none, reluctantly approaching Chung. Do you know where the former emperor is? The boy, curious about this bold stranger, thought, who is this fool to seek out the former emperor? He was unaware that even a withered camel is larger than a horse. An emperor should not be disrespected. Let him go get beaten. He pointed in a direction. Over there, hurry. Chung, unperturbed, continued on, hands clasped behind his back, eventually arriving outside a grand hall. Inside, sounds of applause and song echoed. Li Yuan sat, his face flushed from drink, surrounded by a feast of delicacies. Chung, incensed, noted that while Li Shimin could only share a cup of Chung Yaojin's wine, Li Yuan indulged in an extravagant banquet. Storming into the hall, he bellowed, silence. The performers halted, turning to face Li Yuan. Li Yuan regarded Chung, recognizing a resemblance to Chung Yaojin. Eager to maintain his image as a once revered emperor, he struggled to contain his disdain for the descendant of a staunch supporter of Li Shimin. How dare you? Guards, take him away and punish him. Then send him to Li Shimin. Li Yuan still refused to acknowledge his second son, Li Shimin. Chung, undeterred, knew that Li Shimin wielded the power of life and death in the Tang dynasty, rendering Li Yuan a mere toothless tiger in comparison. What achievements did he possess? The kingdom had been forged by Li Shimin and his sister, Li Xiaoning, while he basked in their legacy, merely a figurehead. All of you clear out. Chung boomed, leaving no room for Li Yuan's dignity. When the crowd hesitated, Cheng's fury intensified. What part of leave is unclear? You want me to escalate matters? He seized the eunuch and tossed him out. Li Yuan gestured for the audience to exit. Once alone, he scrutinized this legendary figure. I hear you have become the esteemed son-in-law. Is Li Shimin blind to have appointed you? Chung, incensed, retorted that whether blind or not, he was still a son-in-law. And it was not for this indulgent old fool to pass judgment. Think carefully before you speak. I, Cheng Chumo, am not to be trifled with, he declared, chuckling. Li Yuan erupted in laughter, finding it amusing that after 3 years, someone dared to assert their fearlessness before him. He approached Cheng Chumo directly, saying, I shall provoke you. What will you do about it? In response, Cheng Chumo kicked the incense burner with force, sending it flying 5 meters away. The bronze incense burner weighed no less than 50 pounds. Li Yuan's eyes sparkled with interest. This young man intrigued him, stirring the emperor's age-old fondness for talent. Stop. Longsun Empress rushed in, lifting her skirts. She shot Cheng Chumo a sharp glance, and he promptly transformed into a compliant child, standing behind her. The empress bowed to Li Yuan, saying, Father, please do not hold it against him. Cheng Chumo did not mean it, and I shall punish him upon our return. Li Yuan waved dismissively, unconcerned. Ask him why he has come to see me. The empress turned her gaze to Cheng Chumo, giving him a subtle signal to behave. Cheng Chumo replied, the retired emperor is foolish. Son, he is a loyal minister, and it is unjust to imprison him without reason. I cannot abide by such actions. Li Yuan furrowed his brow, struggling to remember whose son he was. Cheng Chumo's insult did not bother him. After so many years, he had grown accustomed to it. Or else he would not have left the Taiji Palace. Without the emperor's presence, Li Shimin could only work from the Eastern Palace. I do not know Sun He. Li Yuan stated. Cheng Chumo explained the situation, and Li Yuan sighed, recalling the matter. Release him, he commanded. With those words, Li Yuan appeared significantly aged, as though a heavy burden had been lifted. One insignificant sun he did not matter much, but it stirred memories of his own vibrant reign. When he held the power of life and death in his hands, now reduced to mere existence. You may leave. You are welcome to visit any time. Longsun Empress nodded in agreement. Ching Chumo remained silent. Had it been anyone else, he would have acted differently. As they departed, Ching Chumo remarked, I must inform you. Retired Emperor, the palace is not wealthy. It matters not how many children you have, but you must not squander. Longsun Empress smiled wryly as they exited the Dun Palace. Chumo, you must temper your impulsiveness, she advised, exasperated that her son had engaged in conflict with the retired emperor. I simply could not tolerate his extravagance. Ching Chumo retorted indignantly. Longsun Empress chuckled softly. To witness the snow, one must forsake warmth. To see the sunrise, one must bid the moon farewell. Life is a balance of sacrifice and gain. I uphold filial piety, ensuring your father lives well. This is merely a form of compensation. Do not act so rashly in the future, do you understand? Ching Chumo nodded in acknowledgement. I shall refrain from visiting the administrative hall. The prison feels safer. Chapter 31. Shui Wanche proposes a divorce. The gathering begins. Longsun Empress discerned Ching Chumo's apprehension. He feared punishment. The prince consort awaits your presence, a eunuch announced, bowing. Ching Chumo maintained a stoic expression as he followed Longsun Empress to the administrative hall, mentally preparing for the worst. Upon encountering Li Shimin, Ching Chumo bowed. Greetings, father. Li Shimin presented a memorial. Take a look at this. Ching Chumo picked up the document, noting it was submitted by Shui Wanche, who had voluntarily requested a divorce. In ancient times, the process of divorce was indeed quite formal. Shui Wanche had grown wise. Ching Chumo felt exasperated. Mere days remained to drive Shui Wanche to madness. Yet at the crucial moment, he withdrew. This complicates matters. Li Shimin's expression relaxed. If this time did not work, there would be another opportunity. He turned to Ching Chumo and said, do not concern yourself with the prison. Li Shimin appeared disinterested in the matter. Ching Chumo nodded. Li Shimin continued, during the gathering, your mother will perform a song. Pay close attention to why she sings it. He wrote a word of approval on the memorial. Shui Wanche had narrowly escaped a crisis. Li Shimin understood who had prompted Shui Wanche. I shall return and prepare, Ching Chumo said, bowing before taking his leave. Erlang. Ching Chumo just had a quarrel with father, Longsun Empress remarked after he departed. Li Shimin appeared annoyed, wondering why she had not mentioned it earlier. Had he known, he could have punished Ching Chumo then. The Guanyin maid must have done it intentionally, he thought, glancing at Longsun Empress, who struggled to suppress her laughter. Erlang. What shall I sing tomorrow? Longsun Empress inquired, realizing she needed to prepare for her performance. The Chickle song, Ching Chumo replied as he returned to the prison. Let us go outside, son, he said, his expression vacant. 3 years had passed, and he found himself at a loss for words to express his feelings in that moment. He followed Ching Chumo out into the blinding sunlight, closing his eyes as tears welled. Ching Chumo offered no consolation, pretending not to see. Upon returning to his fief, Ching Chumo convened a meeting, appointing Sun He as the steward of his domain, placing him on par with Xia Zhu and Wu Shan. Sun He bowed, understanding his worth. Ching Chumo required weapons, and he would fulfill that role. One need not fear being used, but rather the lack of utility. Everything was in order. A day later, the princesses and princes gathered in the back garden of the administrative hall. The number of princesses in the Tang dynasty was indeed overwhelming. Ching Chumo arrived fashionably late, having completed his training. Strolling into the garden with his hands behind his back, the princesses and princes rose in unison to greet him. Greetings, Prince Consort Chung. This demonstrated Ching Chumo's esteemed position among the princes. Regardless of age, they all bowed to him. Ching Chumo surveyed the crowd of over 100, nodding slightly. There is no need for excessive formalities. Please, be at ease. His words carried the weight of one who seemed to command the space. As if he were the master of the administrative hall. Some silently mocked him, while others looked on with envy. Li Shimin and Longsun Empress observed from a distant balcony. Li Shimin shook his head, acknowledging that it was no small feat for Ching Chumo to speak so eloquently. He likely had rehearsed for 2 days. Longsun Empress stifled her laughter, knowing that wherever Ching Chumo was, there would be merriment. I must go sing now, you stay here and listen, Longsun Empress said as she made her way to the garden. Upon her arrival in the back garden, a bright smile graced her face. Greetings, your majesty. The gathered crowd bowed. Longsun Empress smiled and nodded, exchanging pleasantries before beginning to sing the Chickle song, accompanied by several princesses strumming their instruments. Longsun Empress, being of Xinbei descent, had her song translated from the Xinbei language. Her voice was ethereal and clear, evoking the vastness of the grasslands. One could almost envision galloping horses grazing freely on the plains. As the melody concluded, the audience remained entranced. Longsun Empress turned to Ching Chumo, inquiring, what are your thoughts? This was a question prompted by Li Shimin, seeking Ching Chumo's feedback. He pondered for a moment before responding, Mother, I feel an overwhelming desire to graze. Longsun Empress stifled a laugh as she departed. The princesses and princes struggled to contain their amusement. Ching Chumo was indeed a remarkable character, unable to hold back. Laughter erupted throughout the gathering. Ching Chumo remained unfazed, a smile adorning his face, as the crowd urged him to sing a song. He did not refuse. Rising to the center, observing the Guqin, He commanded, "Bring forth the war drums." The eunuchs complied, soon presenting the drums. Empress Changsun and Li Shimin were seated in a pavilion, sipping tea. The plaintive wail of Cheng Chumo echoed, "You, who descended from the heavens, landed upon my steed." Li Shimin's hands trembled at the sound. The rendition of You by Tu Hongang was utterly ravaged by Cheng Chumo's performance. The resounding beat of the war drums mingled with his cries. Empress Changsun closed her eyes, envisioning a maiden descending gracefully onto her beloved's horse. How enchanting! Yet, Li Shimin failed to perceive the beauty therein. The song evoked in him a sense of galloping forth, under the gaze of multitudes, with a fair maiden in his embrace. As the melody concluded, Cheng Chumo exclaimed, "Today, let us indulge in revelry. First with song, then with duel, and finally, let us drink." A playful spirit ignited within him. The princes glanced at the table, only to find it devoid of wine. Cheng Chumo took note of this and declared, "Fear not, I shall procure the wine. Follow me." He led a group of princes directly to the Dan Palace, their expressions tinged with trepidation. "Wine here?" Cheng Chumo inquired of a young eunuch. The eunuch, trembling, gestured towards a direction, the very palace of Li Yuan. Cheng Chumo abandoned the eunuch and hurried towards the palace, bowing respectfully upon encountering Li Yuan. The princes followed suit, saluting. "We pay our respects to the Supreme Emperor." Li Yuan, perplexed, wondered why these individuals had come to pay their respects. "Your Majesty, it is unwise to indulge in wine at your age," Cheng Chumo advised. "Remove all excess." The princes reluctantly complied. Cheng Chumo then turned his gaze towards the meat. "Your Majesty, your health has become fragile. Henceforth, I implore you to favor a vegetarian diet." In no time, the wine and meat were cleared away. The princes, laden with goods, took their leave, leaving Cheng Chumo to bear the brunt of the situation. He continued his search, disinterested in fruits, leaving them for Li Yuan. "Your Majesty, please continue. I merely came to observe." With that, he dashed away. Li Yuan stared blankly. "These little rascals." He glanced at the now empty table and chuckled, addressing a eunuch. He commanded, "Fetch some wine from the cellar and deliver it to them." For reasons unknown, Li Yuan relished this feeling. Perhaps age had rendered him in need of familial affection. The princes returned to their revelry, dancing and drinking. Li Shimin's expression soured. "Guanyin maid, do not drag me into this. Cheng Chumo cannot be allowed to strike." This little rascal dared to seek wine from the emperor. What a reckless endeavor. A host of eunuchs soon arrived, bearing an abundance of wine. Li Shimin furrowed his brow and summoned a eunuch for an explanation. "What is the meaning of this?" The eunuch, trembling, divulged. "The Supreme Emperor feared you would not have enough to drink, so he sent this." A twinge of jealousy crept into Li Shimin as he glanced at his cup of strong tea. Empress Changsun, with a smile, inquired, "Does Erling wish to drink?" "That can be arranged." She beckoned to a eunuch and instructed, "Summon Cheng Chumo." Upon Cheng Chumo's arrival, she announced, "Your father wishes to drink." Empress Changsun aimed to have Cheng Chumo act as a mediator. "Steal from the Supreme Emperor," Cheng Chumo blurted out. This response piqued Li Shimin's interest. He had stolen before. And his silence implied acquiescence. Fueled by wine, Cheng Chumo led Li Shimin and Empress Changsun to the Dan Palace. Upon encountering Li Yuan, Li Shimin and Empress Changsun bowed. Li Yuan's emotions were mixed. This was the first time Li Shimin had come to see him. "Father wishes for wine. Supreme Emperor, please present the finest." After bowing, Cheng Chumo added, "Li Shimin is somewhat anxious. He fears you might dismiss him." Li Yuan did not act upon that fear, casting a sharp glare at Cheng Chumo. "Bring forth the finest wine." Chapter 32, September Deployment. Schooling. The wine was served. "Let us raise a toast," Cheng Chumo proclaimed. Li Shimin lifted his cup towards Li Yuan. Li Yuan remained still, and Li Shimin felt awkward, caught between a rock and a hard place. "Supreme Emperor, will you partake?" "We shall drink regardless," Cheng Chumo stated. Li Shimin silently commended him for deftly navigating the situation. Cheng Chumo, however, was unaware of such subtleties. He merely found the situation infuriating. Li Yuan raised his cup but disregarded everyone, drinking alone. Li Shimin followed suit. Cheng Chumo shook his head in dismay. These two were at odds. The atmosphere grew rather somber. "Mother, why did you sing the Chula song?" Cheng Chumo inquired. "Your father intends to mobilize against the Turks," Li Yuan replied. Glancing at Li Shimin, "Did I guess correctly?" Li Shimin nodded, flattering. "Father, you are indeed sagacious." A smile graced Li Shimin's face. Li Yuan had finally engaged him in conversation. "I humbly request to accompany the army into battle." Cheng Chumo rose, excitement coursing through him. After such a long time, he finally had the chance to fight. "September has yet to arrive. Why the urgency?" "Sit down," Li Shimin replied, his tone gentle. "Cheng Chumo has performed admirably today." Li Yuan began to understand why he was in his current position. The generals around Erlang are enviable. "What are the military expenses?" Li Yuan questioned. Li Shimin's countenance darkened. Funds were still unaccounted for. "Even with insufficient funds, we must engage. This is a rare opportunity." Since Li Shimin ascended the throne, disasters had plagued the land. Not only did the Tang face calamities, but the Turks did as well. Their pastures lay ravaged by locusts, and they were fragmented into Eastern and Western Turks. This was a heaven-sent opportunity. The chance to wage war is fleeting. How could General Li Shimin let it slip away? The noble families must contribute. They cannot simply feast without labor. Find an excuse to have them fund the military. Li Yuan advised. Li Shimin nodded, sharing the same sentiment, but had yet to find an opportune moment. Li Yuan turned to Cheng Chumo, as did Li Shimin. Opportunities must be created. Cheng Chumo is the perfect instigator. As a prince of beauty, this duty falls upon you, Li Yuan added. Cheng Chumo, however, was not inclined to heed Li Yuan's words. Feigning ignorance while drinking. Are you deaf? Your father is speaking to you. Do you wish to be punished? Li Shimin exclaimed angrily. I must study. I have no time for this. Cheng Chumo had made up his mind. Unless he was prohibited from studying, there would be no negotiation. Seeking trouble with the noble families required justification. Last time, he had been right. This time, however, without cause to provoke them? Ridiculous. I refuse. It was as simple as that. Li Shimin's expression darkened. Li Yuan burst into laughter, finding this youth rather amusing. Curiosity alight in his eyes, he asked. What will it take for you to agree? I wish to go to the front lines against the Turks. I do not wish to study. Promise me these two conditions, and I shall go. Cheng Chumo put forth his demands, gazing at Li Shimin with eager anticipation. In your dreams, you may go to the front lines. But you will study. You will attend school tomorrow, and dare not defy me, or I shall deal with you, Li Shimin retorted, his expression grim. It is evident that this little rascal has no desire to attend school. How can one engage in battle without education? Is warfare merely a mindless charge? Cheng Chumo contemplated further, but with a fierce glare from Li Shimin, he immediately fell silent. Li Yuan and Li Shimin engaged in extensive conversation, while Cheng Chumo sat there, burdened with anxiety over how to attend school the following day. After a bout of drinking, Li Shimin suggested, train your special forces. They will eventually be responsible for transporting supplies. Cheng Chumo nodded in agreement. Upon returning to his fief, he sought out Sun He, who was supervising the construction of the ironworks. How long until the factory is completed? Cheng Chumo inquired. Feeling an urgency as June had arrived, and the expedition was but 3 months away. 1 month, Sun He replied. Master, the books are all prepared, said Xiazhu, approaching with a small backpack. Cheng Chumo's face darkened at the sight of the backpack, and he shot Xiazhu a glare before departing. The next day, with no more delays possible, Cheng Chumo shouldered the backpack and went to school. At Chengwen Academy, he took a seat in the last row, surrounded by younger students. Li Lizzie and Li Tai occupied the front row, while Li Chengxian was absent, studying in the Eastern Palace. The teacher was Li Gang, and Cheng Chumo struggled to comprehend the lessons being taught. The second class focused on military tactics, specifically blitzkrieg. The essence of blitzkrieg lies in its speed and surprise, and it must be coordinated with larger formations to be effective. Without such support, a blitzkrieg becomes a solitary advance, leading to encirclement and despair, a middle-aged scholar stated. And Cheng Chumo listened intently. China has a profound understanding of warfare, with thousands of years of history steeped in conflict. The concept of war is etched into the very bones of its people. The notion of a fighting nation is not merely a saying, but a deeply ingrained truth. After much contemplation, this understanding becomes second nature to every individual. Fearsome as a tiger, aptly describes the fervor of readers. Here, I must humbly request a wave of free gifts, or even paid ones. I am not picky, thank you. Cheng Chumo stood, bowing respectfully, and asked, with defenses so vast, is there still a place for blitzkrieg? The middle-aged man nodded in agreement, stating, thus, one should avoid engaging in warfare with great powers. Indeed, conflicts between major nations are fraught with difficulty. There are no perpetual victors. Germany conquered many smaller nations with its blitzkrieg tactics, yet faltered against Russia, not due to climate, which the German army anticipated, but because of the vastness of the Russian territory that wore them down. No matter how many troops Germany deployed, they found themselves isolated. Warfare is exhausting. One can only maintain momentum for so long before they falter. Engaging in a never-ending conflict is not an offensive strategy. It is a path to destruction. Where the deeper one advances, the quicker one meets their demise. There exists a method to alleviate this, imposing a 30% tax on all wealth obtained from conquests, allowing the remaining 70% to be retained by the individual. Territories conquered would grant titles of nobility. The class concluded, and the next lesson was history. Focusing on the Tang dynasty, primarily examining the Qin and Han dynasties, a rather tedious subject. While others listened intently, Cheng Chumo succumbed to slumber. Cheng Chumo, the teacher bellowed, startling him awake. He rose to his feet, momentarily disoriented, and surveyed his surroundings, returning to reality. What are you staring at? He retorted, unfazed by the teacher's reddening face, who struggled to articulate a response. Cheng Chumo, with an air of indifference, walked to the front of the class. Where were we? He mused, glancing at the text. Realizing they were discussing King Gojian, he turned to the students, asserting, Gojian teaches us to judge heroes by their successes and failures. Do not heed the teacher's misguided words. To claim that we should not measure heroes by their outcomes is sheer nonsense. The students listened with rapt attention, especially Li Lizzie, who idolized Cheng Chumo without reservation. He continued, some individuals prefer to ignore the facts. Discussing matters without acknowledging reality is futile. Remember my words, Gojian may not have been a good person, but he was a successful individual. Class dismissed. The students erupted in cheers, and Cheng Chumo led the way out, with Li Lizzie trailing behind, her small bag in tow. Prince Consort, wait for me, she called. The teacher stood in a daze, gazing at the empty classroom, struggling to comprehend the situation. Had he not just stated that we should not judge heroes by their successes or failures? Was that incorrect? Chapter 33. A severe beating and 500 war horses with no classes in the afternoon. Cheng Chumo took Li Lizzie to his fief. She had not visited in quite some time and was thrilled to see the significant changes. Prince Consort, you are amazing, she exclaimed, observing the merchants lined up to receive goods and the rows of wagons awaiting loading, along with the distant sight of grand windmills resembling flowers. How did you achieve this? Li Lizzie asked, her expression earnest and somewhat incredulous. Cheng Chumo wore a proud smile, declaring, with a few more years, this place will be industrialized. This highlights the importance of knowledge. Cheng Chumo was not particularly extraordinary. Rather, he was an unassuming modern individual. His extensive experiences allowed him to draw insights that could take the Tang dynasty half a century to explore, while Yuan Tiangong's insights spanned 500 years. Cheng Chumo had witnessed 5,000 years of history. One may lack talent, but one must never lack knowledge. Dear readers, take the time to explore and learn, he implored. What would you like to eat today? The mere mention of food brightened Li Lizzie's spirits. After a satisfying meal, she reluctantly departed from the fief. While Cheng Chumo began his training, the special forces were well prepared. Today, we shall engage the Xuanjia Iron Cavalry in a drill. Are you confident? Cheng Chumo had long desired to practice against the Xuanjia Iron Cavalry, the pinnacle of cavalry in the Tang dynasty. Only such formidable opponents could forge the most exceptional special forces. Cheng Chumo led his troops to the northern side of the imperial city, not far from the Dun Palace. Where the Grand Canal flowed nearby, the Xuanjia Iron Cavalry was stationed there. Upon encountering Yuqi Jingda, Cheng Chumo bowed respectfully. Uncle Yuqi, shall we have a match? Yuqi Jingda promptly commanded 100 soldiers from the Xuanjia Iron Cavalry to form up, each clad in scale armor and riding majestic steeds. Cheng Chumo felt a pang of envy. Yuqi Jingda, brimming with pride, declared, today, we shall engage in mounted combat. Cheng Chumo's countenance darkened. He had no warhorse. How could he fight? An idea struck him, and he ingratiatingly asked, Uncle Yuqi, could you spare me a few hundred warhorses? What a joke, absolutely not. Yuqi Jingda retorted. He could not afford to part with the warhorses, which Li Shimin had procured with great effort. Cheng Chumo refused to leave without them, much to Yuqi Jingda's annoyance. Go seek Chibi He Li. He has horses, Yuqi Jingda instructed. However, Cheng Chumo hesitated. He had previously bested Chibi He Li in a competition and did not wish to face him again. Uncle Yuqi, can you help me? Cheng Chumo pleaded innocently. Yuqi Jingda was unmoved, bellowing to the Xuanjia Iron Cavalry, dismount and give them a beating. The armored cavalry dismounted and charged towards the special forces. The soldiers, filled with confidence, soon found that confidence and strength are two distinct matters, as they were mercilessly beaten, leaving them bruised and battered. Cheng Chumo's expression darkened with anger. You'll regret this, he declared, no longer addressing them as uncle. He departed with his defeated men. After returning to his fief, he hesitated repeatedly, but ultimately decided to seek out Chibi Helu. Certain matters could not be brought to Li Shimin, even if Li Shimin agreed to provide the horses. The military generals would not comply. Upon arriving at Chibi Helu's residence, he gritted his teeth and said, I wish to see Uncle Chibi. The steward relayed the message, and soon returned to invite Cheng Chumo inside. Upon meeting Chibi Helu, Cheng Chumo bowed respectfully. I have come to apologize, Uncle Helu. Chibi Helu's countenance was grim. No need for such formalities. Speak, what brings you here? Though Chibi Helu feigned ignorance, he was already aware, courtesy of Yuqi Jingda, that Cheng Chumo sought warhorses. The horses could be provided, but the price would be vengeance. Cheng Chumo clarified his intentions, and Chibi Helu readily agreed. However, he suddenly shifted his tone. Cheng Chumo's heart sank. The inevitable had arrived. Let us have another match. I had made some mistakes last time. Chibi Helu appeared reluctant, as if he truly believed he had faltered. Cheng Chumo inwardly cursed the old man, thinking, just wait. Today I seek your favor, but tomorrow, you'll see what I can do. He smiled and replied, I would like to spar with you, uncle. The duel commenced. But it was less of a contest and more of a one-sided beating. Cheng Chumo refrained from retaliating as Chibi Helu executed 2 shoulder throws, for knee strikes, delivered over 50 kicks, and struck the back of his head thrice. Chibi Helu wore a satisfied grin. Come on, Chumo, why are you lying on the ground? Cheng Chumo wished to rise, but found himself utterly drained. Several maidservants helped him to his feet. Uncle Helu, what about the warhorses? Cheng Chumo managed to force a smile. Ah, the warhorses are available, though their hooves are somewhat worn. Do you still want them? Chibi Helu's expression was cunning. The horses are yours. But they will only be able to pull straw afterward. They are still warhorses. Thank you, Uncle, Cheng Chumo uttered through clenched teeth. Upon returning to his fief, Chibi Helu proved to be trustworthy, sending 500 warhorses. Cheng Chumo was exhilarated at the sight. Standard cavalry requires 3 horses per soldier. He could provide 5 for each special forces member. Speed is of the essence in warfare, and the condition of the horses' hooves was no concern for Cheng Chumo. Before his crossing, he had always enjoyed the art of shoeing. Fixing a horse's hoof was not a challenge. With proper shoes, they would run even faster than before. All of this awaited the completion of the ironworks. As he moved, pain shot through his body, leading him to abandon any thoughts of shoeing horses. Princess Danyang arrived. Xia Zhu announced, the princess has come to dine with you. Cheng Chumo, lying on the bed, smiled at her in a red hanfu. Your Highness, I am honored by your presence. After the meal, the princess ate heartily, her belly round and her cheeks flushed with a hint of shyness. Eating so much in front of men was somewhat embarrassing. Regaining her composure, she said, "This will be my last meal here. I am to become a nun." Her head bowed, eyes reddened. If she had a choice, she would not wish to enter a convent, but it was a command from Li Shimin. Cheng Chumo furrowed his brow. The princess had already endured enough suffering. Why must she take this path? Who ordered this? He asked, regretting it immediately. Who else could it be? He continued, You do not wish for this, do you? Princess Danyang rubbed her eyes and gazed at Cheng Chumo, her feelings toward him a tangle of contradictions. It doesn't matter anymore. Will you please hoist me back onto the windmill? Cheng Chumo shook his head. That is not possible. Disappointment crossed her features as she forced a smile. Then I shall take my leave. Rising to depart, he called out, Which temple will you be going to? Princess Danyang paused, mustering her courage to turn around and name a temple. After she left, she glanced back 3 times, her cheeks flushing at the thought of Cheng Chumo's inquiry. Would he come after her? Just as she exited the fief, Xia Zhu caught up to her, bowing and saying, The master wishes to inform you that, as a member of the Cheng family, you cannot enter the convent without your father Cheng Yaojin's consent. The master seeks to understand why his majesty has ordered you to do so. Princess Danyang stood there, dazed. She was indeed a member of the Cheng family. She had been sold by Cheng Chumo, and there was a bond of servitude. In a hushed tone, she said, The empress said that after September, Tuyohan would take action. Xuanzang still has his uses. Xia Zhu returned with the report. The master, the empress mentioned that after September, Tuyohan would be making moves. Cheng Chumo understood. In September, the Tang dynasty would be waging war against the Eastern Turkic Khaganate, and Tuyohan would undoubtedly seize the opportunity to invade Hanoi. Value determines life and death, he mused. Xia Zhu nodded. That was indeed the case. Chapter 34. Li Shimin's Vision. A Flourishing of Flowers. Cheng Chumo requested leave, which was promptly granted by Chongwen Pavilion, who informed him that he need not attend due to ill health. Such treatment was reserved solely for him. Had it not been for Li Shimin's decree, they would have preferred to expel him. After a day of absence, the history teacher questioned his own role and resigned to return to farming. After a night's rest, Cheng Chumo's health returned. He had to admit, he was quite resilient. Arriving at the stables, he was elated by the sight of 500 war horses. He took a shovel and began to shoe the horses himself. By the end, each Special Forces member had 5 horses. Cheng Chumo stood alone in the wind, disheartened. As the Special Forces bathed their horses, wishing he could give himself a slap for his predicament. Should we go and request a few more? Xia Zhu inquired cautiously. Cheng Chumo's expression darkened. While 500 horses could withstand a beating, was it worth it for just 5? It's fine. I have a plan. Cheng Chumo proceeded to the palace, heading directly to the Zhengzheng Hall's menagerie. All of Li Shimin's pets resided there for safety. Keeping them in other palaces would invite mischief from ministers. Li Shimin had once cherished a parrot, kept in his sleeping quarters, only to have it tragically killed by Wei Zhang. Li Shimin loved dogs, but Wei Zhang constantly provoked them. One day, Tread Snow could not restrain itself and bit Wei Zhang's clothing. Wei Zhang pursued Tread Snow for a day, and only when it fled into the Zhengzheng Hall did it escape disaster. To quell the situation, the Tang dynasty enacted a new law. If a vicious dog bit someone, its owner would face imprisonment. Li Shimin learned from this and decided to keep all pets in the Zhengzheng Hall. Wei Zhang had no choice. Empress Chang's son had saved his life and had been a benefactor to him. Li Shimin harbored intentions to eliminate Wei Zhang, yet Empress Chang's son interjected, stating that Wei Zhang served as a mirror, perpetually reminding his majesty. It was thus that Wei Zhang was spared. It is said, a mirror of bronze can correct one's attire. A mirror of history can reveal the rise and fall of nations. A mirror of humanity can illuminate the gains and losses. This reflection emerged from Li Shimin following his loss of Wei Zhang. Cheng Chumo arrived at the horse corral, which housed a dozen steeds. He hesitated before the black dragon, yet felt emboldened by the others. Seizing an opportune moment when the groom was distracted, Cheng Chumo led away 5 horses. The black dragon yearned to break free and follow, but Cheng Chumo dared not release it. He managed to ride away just as he reached his fief when Yuqi Jingda, accompanied by more than 10 riders, caught up with him. Do you dare to steal His Majesty's horse? Yuqi Jingda exclaimed, astonished. Many had dared to criticize Li Shimin, but Cheng Chumo was the first to audaciously touch his steed. Cheng Chumo secured the horses and determined he would endure punishment rather than relinquish them. Yuqi Jingda glanced at the corral, where the special forces were bathing the horses. He silently nodded, then shook his head. No amount of washing could restore their ability to gallop fiercely. He escorted Cheng Chumo back to the Hall of Governance. Upon arrival, Yuqi Jingda took his leave. Li Shimin wore a sardonic smile, noting that this little rascal had at least exercised restraint by not stealing his black dragon. Although the other horses were not as prized, they were still cherished possessions of Li Shimin. With a voice laden with anger, he demanded, Speak, how many lashes do you wish to receive? I shall heed my father's words, Cheng Chumo replied. It is worth enduring punishment for those 5 horses. Li Shimin approached Cheng Chumo, his voice rising in fury. You scoundrel! Why did you steal mine? Your father possesses horses too. Why not take his? Regret washed over Li Shimin as he reflected on how difficult it was to be the father-in-law of Cheng Chumo. He lamented that he should have heeded Cheng Yaojin's advice to allow his son-in-law to inherit a title and live a life of ease without burdening him with responsibilities. Cheng Chumo wiped his brow, internally acknowledging that his father was also prone to outbursts. Take him outside and punish him, Li Shimin bellowed. Hold on. Empress Changsun entered, gently urging Li Shimin to sit. It is but a few horses. What harm is there in granting Cheng Chumo a few? Despite her attempts to soothe him, Li Shimin remained unmoved by her rationale. Empress Changsun's demeanor shifted abruptly. Your Majesty, please take your little animals elsewhere. This hall of governance is not a zoo. Instantly, Li Shimin acquiesced. Do not be upset, my dear Guanyin maid. It is merely a matter of horses, nothing more. In a rare twist, Li Shimin found himself appeasing Empress Changsun, who appeared quite displeased and difficult to pacify. Persistently, he sought to placate her. Cheng Chumo, eavesdropping, felt an urge to scratch his ear. Li Shimin, darkening his expression, interpreted this as impatience. You may leave, he commanded, wishing to deliver a sound thrashing to Cheng Chumo, blaming him for the situation. A soft chuckle escaped Empress Changsun, followed by Li Shimin's laughter. Erlang, when will you bestow a title upon Cheng Chumo? She inquired. Cheng Chumo craned his neck, listening intently. Alas, just the other day, I raised the matter in court, but Kong Ingda thwarted the proposal. Claiming that one cannot be ennobled without military merit, Li Shimin disclosed, feigning innocence. Cheng Chumo, taken in by the ruse, felt a surge of indignation. Li Shimin took secret pleasure in his son-in-law's reaction. Kong Ingda, do you not know when to be grateful? You reject a favor, thus. Let Cheng Chumo deal with you appropriately. Empress Changsun did not intervene. She too harbored discontent toward Kong Ingda, recalling how, during their most trying times, they had hoped for his support, even to the point of nearly kneeling before him. Yet, he had offered no assistance. Had he simply uttered a word affirming Li Shimin's legitimacy, many troubles could have been averted. This was the unfortunate consequence of the policy that favored Confucianism while suppressing other schools of thought. Had the 100 schools of thought flourished as they did in the spring and autumn period, would Kong Ingda dare to be so insolent? The ascendancy of Confucianism stifled the development of many other philosophies. What advancements might have arisen had the Mahists been allowed to thrive? Their innovations could have propelled technology forward. The achievements of the Qin and Han dynasties seem unattainable for the Tang dynasty. In the mid-Tang period, the relaxation of governance liberated the thoughts of the populace, leading to the invention of gunpowder and papermaking. Had Confucianism continued to reign unchallenged, nothing of significance would have emerged. The confinement of thought is detrimental. I must take my leave for a matter of some importance, Cheng Chumo stated. Li Shimin nodded with a smile. After Cheng Chumo departed, Empress Changsun remarked, Erlang is indeed wise. With her praise, Li Shimin burst into hearty laughter. While the Tang dynasty did not witness a clash of philosophies, it could embrace a flourishing of diverse expressions, Li Shimin asserted. Cheng Chumo did not proceed directly to Kong Ingda's residence, but returned to his fief to rest. He intended to drill his troops in preparation for a beheading operation, allowing the special forces to rest during the day and execute their mission at night. Let the special forces rest now, he instructed. On a warm night in Chang'an, a gentle breeze caressed the air. Cheng Chumo brought his men to the vicinity of Kong Ingda's estate. With a wave of his hand, the special forces scaled the walls. Soon, shouts echoed forth. Scholars, fond of studying late into the night for the quietude it offered, were roused. Cheng Chumo frowned, realizing their mission had failed upon being discovered. He whistled for the special forces to retreat. Upon returning to their fief, he urged them to reflect on their experience. This time serves as a reminder. During wartime, there will always be patrolling soldiers and hidden sentries. How can you ensure you remain undetected? The special forces engaged in discussion. One noted a scholar reading atop a roof, a revelation that had not occurred to them. Another observed a scholar reading without a lamp, having made a hole in the wall to utilize light from elsewhere. Cheng Chumo nodded inwardly, pleased with their insights. More practice was required. The special forces must be prepared for unforeseen circumstances at all times. Take these lessons to heart. We shall continue with the beheading mission tomorrow. Chapter 35. The Princess of Danyang enters the monastery in the morning. The special forces trained as usual, then rested in the afternoon. Prior to the curfew, they infiltrated the city to await the night's beheading of Kong Ingda. In a bustling restaurant, Cheng Chumo dined amidst a throng of patrons. Have you heard? Just yesterday, someone infiltrated Kong Ingda's residence. I wonder who he has offended. One patron exclaimed, speaking loudly as if to showcase his knowledge. That pales in comparison. Did you know that the Princess of Danyang is entering the monastery today? Another interjected, successfully capturing everyone's attention. The first speaker wore a self-satisfied expression, relishing the moment. Such a young princess choosing to renounce the world. What a pity. The crowd murmured in regret, recognizing the princess's beauty and youth. A carriage appeared, surrounded by several maidservants. Princess Danyang clutched a small box, her entire possessions, which included her fief, wealth, and a hairpin bequeathed by her mother. Deliver this to Lord Cheng. I shall have no further use for it, she instructed, handing the box to her maidens. The maidservants looked on with sorrow for their beloved princess. With a carefree smile, Princess Danyang declared, once I enter the monastic life, I shall have no ties to the secular world. As the carriage passed the restaurant, onlookers crowded the windows to catch a glimpse. Cheng Chumo peered through a gap. then rose to his feet. Without indulging in any fanciful thoughts, Cheng Chumo is not one to be distracted. He is a man of action. He may err, but he cannot afford to remain idle. Leaving a mere coin behind, he departs from the tavern. The carriage traverses into the desolate areas surrounding Chang'an, where many such regions exist. Some are cultivated, yet the majority lie fallow. Suddenly, a startled cry escapes the maidens. Back in, Cheng Chumo swiftly darts to the side of the carriage and climbs in. Princess Danyang smiles, for this is the true essence of Cheng Chumo. You have arrived, she exclaims, her voice tinged with delight. Cheng Chumo gazes intently at her, causing her cheeks to flush a rosy hue. As the carriage exits the city, the maids, their faces tinted with embarrassment, follow closely behind. If we were to act, would His Majesty eliminate me? Cheng Chumo chuckles. The princess, shyly casting a glance at him, knows from her understanding of Li Shimin that he would not, as long as one possesses value. Observing those whom Li Shimin employs reveals much. He has stated, it is better to use those who have made mistakes than to use those who have not. Those who have erred are easier to control. And even if one is innocent, Li Shimin will find a way to lead them into error. This is his habitual method. Throughout his life, Fang Xianling remained incorruptible. Yet Li Shimin presented him with two beautiful women to sway his affections. When Fang Xuanling's wife caused a scene in the palace, Li Shimin's plan faltered. After a half-year hiatus at home, with the encouragement of Empress Changsun, Li Shimin reinstated Fang Xianling. The fact that Li Shimin allows rumors of Princess Danyang's affair with Cheng Chumo to circulate in Chang'an is also deliberate. For Cheng Chumo to gain significant favor, he must commit a grave error. Otherwise, he will forever remain merely a blade in service. What do you think? Princess Danyang inquires. Cheng Chumo refrains from answering and instead reclines on her lap, unashamedly direct in his demeanor. She does not shy away, her face aglow with embarrassment and discomfort. Upon arriving at the temple, a group of nuns awaits at the entrance. Cheng Chumo strides confidently alongside Princess Danyang into the temple, arriving at a meditation room. After a cursory glance, he expresses his dissatisfaction. I shall send someone to make repairs tomorrow. I do not favor this environment. Princess Danyang remains silent, seated at the edge of the bed. You ought to return, she states, her tone ambiguous. Cheng Chumo lies down on the bed, casually remarking, I may be capable, and I shall surely be ennobled, but I lack leverage, and that is unacceptable. Princess Danyang's heart races. Is this him prompting her to err? Little did she expect that Cheng Chumo would make no further advances and simply fall asleep. She glares at him, her youthful inexperience evident, too timid to take initiative. He sleeps soundly through the afternoon. When Cheng Chumo finally awakens, darkness has enveloped the sky, and Princess Danyang sits there, dozing. Let us depart, he suggests. Though it is unnecessary, Li Shimin has likely been aware of Cheng Chumo's circumstances here for some time. Without the nuns having been planted as spies by the court, none can be trusted. Cheng Chumo rises and strides out. In a few days, I shall bring you some provisions. Upon reaching the gates of Chang'an, he finds them shut. The curfew in effect. Cheng Chumo remains unperturbed, observing the nightscape with his hands clasped behind his back. This serves as a test for the special forces. How would they act in his absence? In modern times, they would undoubtedly continue with their mission. At the residence of Kong Yingda, the night is sleepless. His eyes are bloodshot, having not closed them since yesterday. Scholars are often plagued by small-mindedness. This is true. Each time he recalls the intrusion into his estate, his thoughts spiral. The household guards assigned to patrol have been increased to 100, yet Kong Yingda remains uneasy, surrounded by many students, all of whom appear as exhausted as he, resembling giant pandas. Shall we simply wait here, master? Perhaps we should allow the patrolling soldiers to enter the estate, one suggests. Kong Yingda, however, insists on maintaining his dignity. Scholars must have principles. He would rather die standing than kneel for life. To invite soldiers into his residence is an affront he cannot accept. Others may seek his favor, but he has never sought anyone's. Outside the estate, the special forces gather in the shadows. Without Cheng Chumo's presence, they are at a loss. To retreat is not an option, as their leader has commanded them to proceed with their assassination mission. To act without orders is equally unthinkable. We cannot simply remain idle. Shall we attempt to execute the task? One proposes, though lacking confidence, for without Cheng Chumo, they feel adrift. This sentiment is shared among the other soldiers as well. Ultimately, they decide to maintain their positions and continue their surveillance. As dawn breaks, Cheng Chumo enters the city but does not seek out the special forces. Instead, he heads directly to the Hall of Audience. I pay my respects to Father. He greets Li Shimin with a bow. Li Shimin regards him with a knowing gaze. What have you been up to yesterday? He asks, feigning ignorance. Cheng Chumo, unreserved, candidly replies. He anticipates Li Shimin's ire, perhaps even a pretense of it. Oh, I too have stayed in temples. The Guanyin maidens adore those places, Li Shimin chuckles. Empress Changsun has been a devout Buddhist since childhood, which explains the name Guanyin maidens. Technically, they should be called Guanyin attendants. Li Shimin refrains from mentioning Princess Danyang, yet Cheng Chumo feels compelled to bring her up. Yesterday, I nearly made a grave mistake. He states, locking eyes with Li Shimin, who remains impassive. Such trivialities are beneath the emperor's consideration. In his eyes, this matter holds little significance. Princess Danyang occupies no esteemed position in his thoughts. Not just her, but all princesses and princes are mere pawns. The mind of an emperor is inscrutable to Cheng Chumo. Do not trouble me with such trifles, Li Shimin admonishes. To indulge a son is akin to slaying him. Li Shimin intentionally allows Cheng Chumo some latitude. Yet this foolish lad remains oblivious. As long as a story unfolds between him and Princess Danyang, Li Shimin can hold sway over him indefinitely. Cheng Chumo's resistance is something Li Shimin did not foresee. Trivial matters? Cheng Chumo's face lights up with delight, prompting Li Shimin to nod inwardly, approving of his reaction. Father, I shall return tonight, Cheng Chumo adds. Begone, Li Shimin replies darkly. Some matters cannot be spoken openly. Chapter 36. It is better to have made mistakes than to have never tried. A pledge of loyalty. Cheng Chumo exits the palace. Pondering whether this is indeed a pledge of loyalty. He cannot fathom the mind of an emperor. The heart of a ruler is elusive. One should not disdain dirty tactics. Very few successful individuals are without blemish. To seek purity is to forsake achievement. Only victors can rewrite history. Once more, he returns to the temple, to Princess Danyang's quarters. Now elegantly redecorated and imbued with warmth. Upon his arrival, Princess Danyang appears unsurprised. Have you seen your father? She inquires shyly. Cheng Chumo nods. His expression earnest as he gazes at her. Do you consent? This leaves Princess Danyang at a loss for words. Her cheeks flush with heat as she bows her head in silence. Cheng Chumo understands her hesitation. At this moment, to be coy would not be true to his character. He rises and embraces Princess Danyang, who instinctively buries her head in his embrace. The evening breeze sings sweetly, and the night is alive with melody. Cheng Chumo was escorted by the eunuchs to the Ganlu Hall of the Taiji Palace, the imperial chamber of Li Shimin. Upon seeing Cheng, Li Shimin's expression darkened, and he barked angrily. How do you wish to die? Cheng lowered his head, silent, disdainful in his heart, thinking, what a facade. Do you not wish for me to tread the path of crime? Indeed, Li Shimin swiftly changed his tone. The matter concerning Li Ji cannot be fully blamed on you. It is my oversight. After glancing at Cheng, he continued, this matter must remain concealed from Li Ji. Do you understand? Cheng nodded, pondering the implications of Li Ji discovering the truth, a lever that could control his fate for a lifetime. Li Shimin was aware of Cheng's affection for Princess Changla, the one he cherished most, thus revealing his vulnerability. Cheng's naivety was his own fault. His shortcomings lay in his simplicity, yet that was not a damning flaw. He refrained from indulgences such as gambling or debauchery, and Li Shimin could only exploit his emotional ties. With that, Li Shimin opened a memorial and took up the jade seal to affix his stamp. The eunuch bowed and began to read aloud. Cheng Chumo has contributed to the welfare of scholars by creating paper. Thus, he is to be conferred the title of Baron of Fufeng County, without a substantive fief. To be confirmed upon further merit. After the reading, Li Shimin remarked, you have performed commendably during this period. Cheng bowed in gratitude, saying, Father, please do not inform Li Ji of this matter. I shall exercise more caution henceforth to avoid your discovery. There was no hint of repentance in his demeanor. Li Shimin, disinterested, waved him away, tacitly accepting the matter concerning Princess Danyang. Cheng still had not sought out the special forces. A day passed. The special forces had been lurking for 3 days and decided to take action against Kong Ingda. Time was running out, and they could not endure any longer. It was not only the special forces who suffered. Every individual in Kong Ingda's residence had not slept for 3 days. That night, they could no longer hold out and fell into a deep slumber. The special forces scaled the walls, fully prepared for a potential failure of their mission. Upon entering the residence, they were taken aback to find the servants sprawled on the ground, fast asleep. In the living room, a group lay in disarray. The special forces hoisted Kong Ingda and made their escape. Upon reaching the city gate, the real challenge lay ahead. At that moment, Cheng Chumo stood just outside the city gate, separated from the special forces by a mere door. The special forces, emboldened by their previous decision, found a weak point in the patrols and climbed over the walls to exit the city. Upon seeing Cheng, their faces lit up with excitement. Akin to children proudly taking their first steps, Cheng offered his approval, generously praising, well done, you have taken another step forward. Upon returning to their fief, the special forces quickly fell into a deep sleep, while Kong Ingda found himself tied to a large tree. When he awoke and attempted to shout, 2 large black dogs bared their teeth, warning him not to disturb their slumber. Terrified, Kong Ingda gazed at the dogs, his eyelids drooping as he succumbed to sleep once more. Had the literary leader truly vanished? In the Taiji Hall, Li Shimin maintained a composed demeanor, evidently in good spirits. The ministers, feigning ignorance, said nothing about Kong Ingda's disappearance. He had been too arrogant, believing that the support of the scholarly elite entitled him to look down upon others. He was mistaken. While the ministers did not voice their dissatisfaction, they felt it nonetheless. They were all men of standing. Though the court remained silent, the common folk began to murmur. The scholars spontaneously organized a search, their focus directed squarely at Cheng Chumo. Everyone knew that Kong Ingda had offended Cheng, and given Cheng's character, retribution was inevitable. Outside the fief, hundreds of scholars gathered, their faces flushed with anger. Beneath a distant tree lay their teacher, bound. Opposing them stood the fully armed special forces. Cheng shook his head in disbelief, wondering how these individuals could claim to be disciples of Confucius. Had it been Confucius himself, he would have acted decisively long ago. Standing outside the fief, Chung observed the scholars with hands clasped behind his back. Do you think me an easy target? He queried. The scholars glared at him in silence, no one daring to respond. Finding the atmosphere tedious, Chung urged, if you have something to say, say it. Merely staring serves no purpose. Scholars were, after all, scholars, cautious and overly contemplative. Had they been ordinary citizens, they would have charged in with pitchforks long ago. One must not be overly clever. Too much cunning can be detrimental. Chung signaled to Xia Zhu, who hurried over. What is your command, master? Bring forth several carts of paper, Chung instructed. Xia Zhu complied swiftly, soon returning with an abundance of paper. The scholars, captivated by the sight of the paper, turned their attention away from Chung. The court had distributed it for free, but not without restrictions. Each department imposed cuts, and how much actually reached their hands was questionable. Today, I, Chung Chimo, declare that anyone contributing to the welfare of the people of the Tang dynasty or to literature may come here to claim paper. Take as much as you desire, Chung proclaimed. Observing the scholars' reactions closely, he aimed to liberate their potential, believing that only then could they evolve into true scholars rather than mere pretenders. The scholars were visibly moved. Chung Duke's research on paper benefits us all. We express our deepest gratitude. However, Chung interrupted, but there is no however. What use is paper without ink? Must I transcribe your works for you? He continued. You toil day and night for what purpose? Is it not to seek positions of power and wealth? Yet, why are you not utilized? It is not a matter of capability, but rather that Kong Ingda and the aristocracy are in collusion, controlling the appointments and promotions within the court. I could no longer bear to witness this, which is why I captured Kong Ingda, to seek justice for you and to secure equal rights. As he spoke, Chung wiped away a tear, moved by his own words. If you do not require my intervention, then very well. Take Kong Ingda away, and I shall wash my hands of this matter. His voice was imbued with emotion. No, Chung Duke, you cannot abandon us. One among them could not restrain himself from exclaiming. As more voices joined in, the scholars expressed their hopes for fairness and justice, believing they might finally have a chance to honor their ancestors. Chung raised his hands to silence them. Rest assured, His Majesty has already initiated the imperial examinations. I will ensure that fairness prevails in the process. The scholars bowed deeply to Chung, momentarily forgetting their original purpose. Please, take some paper back with you. I presume you do not possess much. The scholars' expressions darkened, each one gritting their teeth, vowing in their hearts that if they were to hold power, they would punish the corrupt. What they would think after attaining positions of authority remained uncertain, but for now, they were filled with righteous indignation. Chapter 37. Smelting iron. The scholars departed as instructed, each carrying a bundle of paper, and bowed to Chung as they left. As for Kong Ingda, they no longer cared. It was beyond their jurisdiction. Bound beneath the tree, Kong Ingda was left in shock. Those who prattle about righteousness are often the most treacherous, while the truly loyal are often the scholars, such ungrateful wretches. Kong Ingda, utterly disregarding his image, found himself consumed by anger. Over 100 scholars had arrived. Yet with just a few words from Chung Chimo, they departed, filled with gratitude. He had never pondered the reason behind such behavior. He labeled the scholars as ungrateful, questioning what he had ever done for them. In truth, he had done nothing but exploit their support to bolster his position as a literary authority. Chung Chimo made his way to the great tree. With a swift motion, he delivered a resounding slap. What more do you wish to say? Why provoke me? He exclaimed. Do you not know that I, Chung Chimo, am not to be trifled with? Kong Ingda, taken aback, experienced his first taste of violence. The sting was intense. Chung Chimo found the encounter rather dull, as Kong Ingda was unable to produce even a single retort. Losing interest, he sought out Sun He, who was engrossed in studying crossbows. Master, what do you think of this crossbow? It's compact, though its lethality is somewhat lacking, Sun He enthused. Chung Chimo examined the crossbow, which was about the size of a watermelon, exquisite and convenient. After a few pulls on the bowstring, he shook his head. No, this crossbow, while small, raises concerns about its killing power. He pinched the wooden bow thoughtfully. If we were to switch to steel, wouldn't that resolve the issue? Once the ironworks are complete, I shall teach you the art of steelmaking. Chung Chimo admitted to himself that he was not skilled in metallurgy. He merely knew that adding carbon to molten iron could yield steel. As for the precise nature of carbon, that remained a mystery to him, necessitating experimentation. Sun He nodded in agreement. Chung Chimo took out paper and drew a horseshoe, which could perfectly remedy damaged hooves. Sun He gazed at the drawing, his face alight with excitement. It can be done this way? Really? His voice was a blend of exhilaration and frustration, as if he had stumbled upon a new world, lamenting why he had not thought of such a simple solution sooner. Horseshoes, how straightforward. For a moment, he struggled to accept it. Chung Chimo shook his head. Recognizing that scientists often had such epiphanies, ordinary people seldom possessed the mindset of a scientist. 3 days later, Kong Ingda's family arrived at the fief. The walls surrounding the estate were under construction, with Chung Chimo overseeing the transport of bricks with a contingent of special forces. After extensive training, the special forces had undergone a remarkable transformation, their bodies brimming with explosive strength. Chung Chimo met the visitors, surprised to find them all women. The leading woman bowed respectfully. I am here to see Prince Chung. Chung Chimo, puzzled, replied, Is there not a single man left in your family? His bluntness was not born of disdain for women, but rather a reflection of the era's views, which relegated women to the domestic sphere while men dominated public affairs. I am a friend of Princess Danyang and the granddaughter of Kong Ingda. Am I not worthy of your attention? She asserted, her tone confident yet respectful, embodying the spirit of a strong woman. Given her connection to the princess, Cheng Chumo felt compelled to treat her with due regard. Come inside, he said. In the parlor. As tea was served, Cheng Chumo assessed the woman. If you wish for me to release your grandfather, it is not impossible, but I require his entire collection of books. I mean every last one, without exception. Cheng Chumo was forthright, eager to avoid idle chatter as the ironworks neared completion, leaving him with numerous tasks. He also needed to collaborate with Sun He on new weaponry. The woman nodded in agreement without hesitation, recognizing the necessity of the request. Li Shimin feigned ignorance, wishing merely to teach Kong Ingdao a lesson about who truly held power in the Tang dynasty. The ministers remained indifferent, though Kong Ingdao's position was not yet precarious. They did not wish to offend Cheng Chumo on his behalf. They understood that Kong Ingdao's current predicament was entirely of his own making. His arrogance, devoid of Confucius's wisdom, made him overestimate his standing, while lacking the capacity to provoke Cheng Chumo without consequence. If someone must be disciplined, let it be him, they thought. The descendants of Confucius remained merely that, descendants, not the sage himself. In the eyes of the common folk, he was distant. Among the aristocracy, he was merely another figure. The woman, decisive, made it clear that Cheng Chumo would not delay. Release Kong Ingda, he instructed Xiazhu. The woman bowed in gratitude, preparing to leave. Cheng Chumo added, would you consider doing something more meaningful? Your accomplishments within the Kong family are limited. If you join me, I can provide a space for you to showcase your talents. The woman hesitated, gazing deeply at Cheng Chumo before bowing again, neither accepting nor rejecting his offer. Cheng Chumo remained patient. After bidding farewell to the woman, he proceeded to the ironworks. The factory building was complete, though the smelting furnace was still under construction. Cheng Chumo planned to create an enormous furnace. Confident that with a windmill, he could melt iron into liquid form. As for the molds, I am unfamiliar with that process. Casting will have to suffice. We will layer the molten iron, he resolved. The windmill would supply a continuous flow of air, allowing the coal to burn sufficiently to reach the temperatures necessary for melting iron ore. At this time, coal was referred to as stone coal, seldom used due to its toxicity. Modern coal has been processed for safety. Back then, furnaces were typically indoors, and the toxic gases released by burning coal could cause anything from fainting to death. After a day, the iron ore had melted into liquid iron. It truly works. It truly works. Son, he shouted in excitement. Cheng Chumo regarded him with disdain. What a lack of composure. Get out of my way. He berated. What if the molten iron spills and shatters the pottery? This is no laughing matter. Son, he seemed oblivious to the reprimand, prompting Cheng Chumo to kick him out. Enough of your foolishness. Look at you, clearly unaccustomed to serious work. After being expelled, Son, he quieted down. Cheng Chumo proceeded with the next step, casting. Uncertain if it would succeed, he decided to try. He began with the base. It was a success. Cheng Chumo was overjoyed and summoned the special forces to assist in the iron casting. With 100 men working together, the process accelerated. Within a day, a 2-meter tall, 2-meter wide cube materialized before them, ready to hold molten iron. Questions flooded in. Would an iron container withstand the heat? Time would tell. If managed properly, there would be no issues with holding molten iron. A month later, Cheng Chumo lay in bed, groaning. His face was marked with patches of black and red, an inevitable consequence of prolonged exposure to the ironworks without protective gear. The special forces bore similar signs, each looking worse than the last. A promising start. The rest I shall leave to the craftsmen, he mused as he rose. The special forces had gathered outside. Go and fit horseshoes on your steeds, he instructed. They complied eagerly. Cheng Chumo equipped his own horse with 5 sets of horseshoes. After mounting and taking a few laps, he found it satisfactory. The special forces followed suit, and their horses were now ready to run. The remaining task was the equipment, dependent on Sun He's ability to innovate. Cheng Chumo was not well versed in this area. Returning to the estate, he noticed that walls had been erected around the perimeter, and a woman stood at the entrance, carrying luggage. Upon encountering Cheng Chumo, I bowed respectfully. I have made up my mind. Cheng Chumo smiled, leading her into the fief. Xiazhu arranged accommodations for Miss Kong. It was indeed Xiazhu. Cheng Chumo picked up the seal to show Kong Ning, who appeared puzzled. Cheng Chumo pressed the seal onto the paper. If one possessed 1,000 seals, could one print a book? Cheng Chumo merely stated this much. Kong Ning fell into a state of stupor. Cheng Chumo departed, knowing that the only way to retain talent was through seduction, casting out an enticing beginning that ensnared them. Revealing everything would be counterproductive. Chapter 38. Conflict with Zhang Liang. With Kong Ning's addition, the fief began to flourish with scholarly energy. This heralded a promising beginning. In the future, this place would become the commercial and technological hub of the Tang dynasty, akin to a modern-day Zhonghuancun. Cheng Chumo commanded the special forces to assemble. The special forces, mounted on impressive steeds, appeared quite dashing, yet were essentially mere ornamental figures. Their equestrian skills paled in comparison to true cavalry. Cheng Chumo resolved to seek out a mentor. He, too, needed to learn. After contemplation, he deemed Chibi Helu the most suitable teacher. It would be unwise to seek the Xuanjia Iron Cavalry, known primarily for their charge into battle, trampling everything in their path. The special forces required a different combat approach, necessitating agility and advanced horsemanship. Follow me to the military camp, he instructed. The Southern Imperial Guards camp was established during the Jingguan era, dividing the guards into northern and southern factions. The Southern Guard was tasked with protecting the Imperial city, while the Northern Guard, fewer in number, was directly mobilized by Li Shimin and played a key role in the Xuanwu Gate incident. The Southern Guard comprised 16 divisions, each with approximately 3,000 men. Though they boasted a facade of 10,000 for intimidation, a common military strategy in ancient times, where numbers were often exaggerated. Upon arrival at the military camp, a group of soldiers surrounded the special forces. A young officer declared, "Who dares to trespass upon this military stronghold? Depart at once. I wish to see General Chibi Helu." Cheng Chimo replied, "The general has returned to Yuzhou. Be gone." The young officer showed no respect for Cheng Chimo, accustomed as he was to arrogance. Cheng Chimo, incensed, thought, "This is an affront. Does no one in Chang'an know who I am?" The warhorse charged at the young officer, who dodged, but Cheng Chimo managed to kick him down. Bam! 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 The young officer had barely fallen when the war drums sounded. A commotion in the camp was tantamount to courting death. A group of neatly arranged soldiers charged forth, led by none other than the most composed general of the Tang dynasty, Zhang Liang, a nobleman of the highest rank. He regarded Cheng Chimo with disdain, muttering, "Is this the son of Qing Yaojin? What brings him to the military camp to stir trouble?" Zhang Liang dismissed Cheng Chimo, remarking that the recent disturbances were mere trivialities. Cheng Chimo scrutinized Zhang Liang, recognizing him as an enemy of the Cheng family, the first traitor of Wagon. It was he who betrayed Li Mi and his comrades, sending former brothers to the executioner's block in exchange for noble status and wealth. Fang Xianling had initially recommended him to the Tiansong mansion, which was the residence of the Prince of Qin, before Li Shimin ascended the throne. After joining the prince's court, Zhang Liang had betrayed his comrades, ultimately selling out Fang Xianling as well. Zhang Liang, seizing the opportunity, declared, "Cheng Chimo, you dare to cause a ruckus in the military camp? This is sheer folly." Cheng Chimo, coldly smirking, drew his blade and commanded, "Seize him." The special forces charged forward. Zhang Liang was taken aback. Did this fool dare to confront him? Cheng Chimo led the charge. Zhang Liang, holding a spear, met him on horseback, wielding it with disdain. The heavy blade was cumbersome, yet Cheng Chimo swung it with all his might. Each clash of weapons shocked Zhang Liang, who noted the surprising strength behind Cheng Chimo's strikes. Albeit lacking in finesse. Feigning retreat, Zhang Liang turned to counterattack. As Cheng Chimo pursued, Zhang Liang executed a maneuver with his spear, causing Cheng Chimo to lose balance and fall from his horse. Zhang Liang pressed his advantage, knowing that Cheng Chimo was at a disadvantage on the ground. Crouching low, Cheng Chimo swept his blade, severing the horse's leg. Zhang Liang, along with his steed, tumbled to the ground. Before he could rise, Cheng Chimo placed his weapon against Zhang Liang's throat, warning, "Should you utter another word, I shall end you." Retreat. Cheng Chimo commanded the special forces as they withdrew, leaving Zhang Liang with a grim expression as he vowed, "You shall pay for this." He then rushed towards the imperial city. In the Lijiang Hall, Zhang Liang announced, "Your Majesty, I have come to report a matter." Dismiss the formalities, Li Shimin replied, his eyes twinkling with satisfaction as he regarded Zhang Liang. The general had proven himself loyal since joining the prince's court, a rare and valuable asset. "What brings you here?" Li Shimin inquired. Zhang Liang embellished the tale of Cheng Chimo's ruckus in the military camp, causing Li Shimin's expression to darken. The military was his foundation, and Cheng Chimo's actions were intolerable. "You may return. I shall administer punishment," he ordered. After Zhang Liang departed, Empress Changsun entered. "My lord, do you believe Zhang Liang's account holds any truth?" Li Shimin questioned, skeptical that Cheng Chimo would cause such a disturbance without cause. Yet Zhang Liang's detailed narrative was hard to dismiss. Empress Changsun poured tea for Li Shimin, suggesting, "Chimo has been quite well behaved lately. It is unlikely he would cause trouble in the military camp. Perhaps there has been a misunderstanding." Li Shimin agreed, suspecting a miscommunication. "Summon Cheng Chimo," he commanded. The eunuchs complied, and soon Cheng Chimo arrived at the Lijiang Hall. "I pay my respects to father and mother." Li Shimin observed Cheng Chimo's appearance with bemusement, noting his disheveled state, akin to a potato boiled with its skin on, an oddity. As potatoes had yet to be introduced to the Tang, Empress Changsun, concerned, approached Cheng Chimo, exclaiming, "Have you fallen into a coal pit?" Cheng Chimo scratched his head, looking rather foolish. "No, I've been practicing blacksmithing." Li Shimin and Empress Changsun were intrigued. They were aware of Cheng Chimo's skills in blacksmithing, but when had he begun to practice it? After Cheng Chimo explained, Li Shimin rose, asking, "Would you like to see?" Empress Changsun expressed her desire to visit as well, suggesting they could pay a visit to the temple to offer incense. They arrived at the fief and entered the ironworks, where a wave of heat enveloped them. Empress Changsun quickly shielded her face, stepping back, unwilling to appear as disheveled as Cheng Chimo. "I shall not enter. You may go ahead," she declared. Li Shimin and Cheng Chimo ventured into the ironworks, where Li Shimin was taken aback by what he saw. After a moment, he inquired, "How much iron can be produced here in a day?" Cheng Chimo had no answer. "Sun He, come here," he called. Sun He approached, uncertain. As he did not recognize Li Shimin was unconcerned. He inquired, What is the daily iron output here? 100 stone, son, he replied. 120 pounds is equivalent to 1 stone, Li Shimin exclaimed, somewhat incredulous. Haha, splendid. A generous reward awaits you. His gaze turned increasingly approving towards Cheng Chumo. Upon exiting the ironworks, Li Shimin remarked, the nation is in need of iron. You must submit it. Cheng Chumo shook his head. I cannot submit it. The court must purchase its iron. Why should I be compelled to contribute? If they possess the capability, let them forge it themselves. Li Shimin's expression darkened. His impulse to strike Cheng Chumo suppressed by the realization he needed something from him. State your demands, he said. Cheng Chumo glanced around, lowering his voice. May I bring Princess Danyang here? Li Shimin felt a surge of satisfaction. Securing Cheng Chumo with a mere princess seemed trivial. Do not speak of such matters with me. I have no time for it. That's fine, Cheng Chumo thought. If Li Shimin abstained from interference, no one would dare to intervene, as long as it remained concealed. With a pat on his chest, Cheng Chumo declared, Father, you may take the iron at half price. Li Shimin opened his mouth, but remained silent. Acceptable. Chapter 39. Horseshoes for one of the 18 riders of Yanyu and Li Shimin and Cheng Chumo entered the parlor. Where has the Empress gone? He inquired. The Empress has gone to the temple, the eunuch replied. Li Shimin remained silent, knowing that Empress Changsun held a deep reverence for Buddhism, often visiting temples, which contributed to Buddhism's prevalence in the Tang dynasty. A starving mouse cannot be slimmed down, nor can a monk be made lean. Father, I wish to hire a master to teach the special forces how to ride, Cheng Chumo suggested. Li Shimin pondered. Cheng Chumo's request seemed to serve a secondary purpose. To teach the special forces to ride would imply they had horses. Chi Bai Healy was aware that Cheng Chumo had received some injured horses, which were now rendered useless. I have no horses, Li Shimin firmly declined. With 100 men each requiring 3 horses, that amounted to 300 war horses, an impossible allocation. I have horses, Cheng Chumo retorted. Li Shimin scoffed at this claim, knowing that horses in the Tang dynasty were strategic resources. You simply wish to deceive me regarding your horses. Seeing Li Shimin's disbelief, Cheng Chumo resolved to show him. They ascended to the loft, where the stable was visible. The special forces were practicing riding. It was a waste indeed. Each soldier had 5 horses, yet they rode only one, the others merely ornamental. Li Shimin observed the galloping steeds, puzzled. Where did Cheng Chumo procure them? Did Chi Bai Healy provide these to you? Cheng Chumo affirmed. Li Shimin continued. But aren't the horses he provided you with already injured? As he spoke, he glanced at Cheng Chumo, who averted his gaze. Cheng Chumo intended to exchange horseshoes for a title and was reluctant to divulge too much at that moment. I can repair horseshoes, Cheng Chumo said. Li Shimin's expression darkened. It was clear he was lying. He raised his head, and Cheng Chumo looked up at the ceiling. Li Shimin chuckled in exasperation. Take me to see. With no alternative, Cheng Chumo led Li Shimin to the stable. 5 war horses were tethered there. Evidence of Cheng Chumo's pilferage from Li Shimin. Li Shimin patted the horse's head and examined the ground. The hoof prints were distinct. Crouching down, he discovered the horseshoes. Gather the special forces, he commanded. Cheng Chumo reluctantly complied. Your Majesty, the special forces knelt on one knee. Rise. Show me your horses. Yes, Your Majesty. Li Shimin inspected each horse, noting that every one wore horseshoes. Cheng Chumo remained silent. Li Shimin turned his gaze to Cheng Chumo, who averted his head. Is this the item that allows the war horses to gallop again? Li Shimin mused, amused by Cheng Chumo's ineptitude at lying. Cheng Chumo stammered, failing to respond. Li Shimin recognized his intent to gain favor. Shaking his head, he clarified, if you have rendered service, you shall be rewarded. I have never been stingy with my bounties. Be clear, I will supply your special forces with weapons, Li Shimin stated. Cheng Chumo scoffed, that is your special forces, not mine. It hardly counts as a reward. Li Shimin was at a loss for words. This young man was quite shrewd. What I declare is yours, he insisted. If Cheng Chumo had not held leverage, Li Shimin would not have spoken in such a manner. Now, he could entrust him without hesitation. Cheng Chumo remained silent, his meaning clear. What is yours is truly yours. Li Shimin's expression darkened. He was perpetually vexed by Cheng Chumo, this rascal. He pointed an accusatory finger at him. Speak. What do you desire? A title, Cheng Chumo stated. Impossible, Li Shimin rejected outright. It has only been days since you conferred the barony. To grant another title without military merit would violate protocol and create challenges for future awards. Horseshoes are of value solely to the military. Civil officials would never agree to a title based on them. Cheng Chumo ceased his entreaties. He lacked nothing else. He had wealth, a beloved, and a fiancée. What more could he want? Without a title, he would not relinquish the horseshoes. Let it be as it may. Thus, the most obstinate figure of the Tang dynasty stood firm, neck outstretched, refusing to speak further. Li Shimin was both amused and exasperated, taking a deep breath to restrain himself. Shall I purchase them? Cheng Chumo's expression was skeptical, as if to communicate. Do you truly have the funds? Restrain yourself, he thought. Restrain yourself? Nonsense. Li Shimin kicked at Cheng Chumo, who was prepared, and dashed away. Li Shimin pursued him. The eunuchs shook their heads. Only Cheng Chumo could provoke the emperor to such a degree, and only he dared to flee from the emperor's wrath. After a few miles, Li Shimin was unable to catch Cheng Chumo, who deliberately maintained a distance of 10 meters, neither too far nor too close, standing there with an air of triumph. Li Shimin huffed. I can no longer pursue. If this were before I became emperor, I could have caught him. He consoled himself with this thought. Pointing at Cheng Chimo, he commanded, I order you to come here. Cheng Chimo shook his head in refusal. Is this a royal decree? Li Shimon's expression darkened. If this were truly a decree, it would be utterly laughable. Suddenly, he charged at Cheng Chimo. Cheng Chimo took large strides to evade him. Li Shimon found himself out of breath, collapsing onto the grass. Panting heavily. Haha. Li Shimon laughed heartily, feeling an immense sense of relief. Being an emperor had been stifling for far too long. When book friends feel discontent, they must vent. Running is the best remedy. Do not hold back. I seek gifts. He beckoned to Cheng Chimo. Feigning ignorance, Cheng Chimo ignored him. Come here. I shall not strike you. At last, Cheng Chimo approached and sat beside Li Shimon. I shall find you a cavalry master if you hand over the horseshoes. Li Shimon proposed. Cheng Chimo did not acquiesce. The horseshoes were certainly worth a title, and he could not afford to lose out. Have you heard of the 18 Riders of Yinyun? Li Shimon continued. Cheng Chimo had certainly heard of the 18 Riders of Yinyun. Renowned as elite special forces trained by Luo Yi. In the late Sui dynasty, they instilled fear across the land, yet with the passage of years, the riders had grown old. Are they still capable of riding? Cheng Chimo inquired. Indeed, they may not partake in battle, but they can impart their knowledge to you. Li Shimon replied. Cheng Chimo felt a surge of excitement. If he could receive training from the 18 Riders of Yinyun, his special forces would become invincible. He rose and bowed deeply to Li Shimon, pleading, Father, grant me the 18 Riders of Yinyun, and I shall offer you iron horseshoes in exchange. It is a worthy trade. Very well, Li Shimon acquiesced, adding, only one rider remains. Tomorrow, I shall summon him to report. Were it not for the horseshoes, Li Shimon would never have consented to part with even one rider. He had initially intended for the rider to train the armored cavalry, but the heavy armor was ill-suited to the combat style of the 18 riders. With matters settled, Cheng Chimo attempted to assist Li Shimon in standing, only to be met with a sharp glare. He retreated, understanding that the emperor was not to be casually aided. Prepare the meal, Li Shimon commanded. Upon returning to the hall, Empress Changsun had already arrived, accompanied by Princess Danyang. Upon seeing Li Shimon, Princess Danyang hastily stood and greeted, Your Majesty, her voice trembling. Burdened by her guilty conscience, Li Shimon acknowledged her with a nod. Empress Changsun took Princess Danyang's hand, encouraging her to sit. You must have endured hardships in the temple. Eat well and enjoy some meat. Princess Danyang nodded softly, too timid to meet Empress Changsun's gaze for fear of revealing her inner turmoil. The temple life must have been quite austere. You are welcome to visit the beautiful lands of Lishur, Li Shimon remarked. Princess Danyang acquiesced, her heart heavy with dread at what was to come. Cheng Chimo entered with a group of maidservants, each carrying a platter of dishes, placing them on the table. It was a round table, as Cheng Chimo preferred, eschewing formalities. Chairs were brought forth, but Princess Danyang hesitated to sit. Sit, Li Shimon instructed. And only then did she comply. The table was laden with food, golden roasted chickens, tender braised beef, and sautéed vegetables. Empress Changsun sampled a bite and praised. Let us begin. Li Shimon joined in, and Princess Danyang timidly picked at her food, her demeanor that of a typical scapegoat. Merely being seated was a small victory. Empress Changsun served her some meat, while Cheng Chimo ate quietly, wary of drawing attention from Empress Changsun by serving Princess Danyang. After Li Shimon and Empress Changsun finished their meal, the maidservants cleared away the dishes and presented new ones, stuffed chicken and braised lamb chops. Come and eat. Cheng Chimo invited as he sat beside Princess Danyang, serving her food. She was truly tempted. The temple had offered no meat, and even if it had, she could not partake in front of the royal family. Sated, Princess Danyang leaned against Cheng Chimo, patting her belly in contentment. How wonderful it would be to remain this way forever, she mused, her face alight with dreams. Yet, she knew her fate was sealed. She was but a tool. After a moment's repose, she gently brushed aside Cheng Chimo's hand, declaring, I shall dance for you. With that, she rose and danced gracefully. Cheng Chimo, though unable to comprehend the intricacies of the dance, found it captivating. The dancer was as beautiful as the dance itself. The dance of the Tang dynasty was distinct from modern styles, emphasizing artistry over mere flamboyance. Once witnessed, it remained enchanting, yet lost its charm upon repetition. As the dance concluded, Cheng Chimo carried Princess Danyang to her chamber. The next day, he rose early and arrived at the gates of the fief, where a lean middle-aged man awaited. Upon seeing Cheng Chimo, he bowed respectfully without uttering a word. For the language of the 18 Riders of Yinyun was foreign to Cheng Chimo. Leading him to the stables, he introduced, This is our instructor. Dismount and pay your respects. The special forces dismounted and bowed, while the lone rider accepted the gesture with calm. Cheng Chimo was taken aback by the first lesson. It was not about riding, but running alongside the horses. When some of the special forces struggled to keep pace, the rider would strike with a whip. The special forces sprinted, and Cheng Chimo joined the exercise, nearly collapsing from exhaustion. Just as he faltered, the rider on horseback caught up to him and delivered a blow with the whip that felt like a soul-extracting pain. As he fell behind again, the rider lashed out twice more. Cheng Chimo pushed himself harder, completing the 5-mile run, utterly spent, as the rider passed by without a word, merely pointing into the distance. Cheng Chumo rose and continued running until his throat burned. He dared not stop, for the rider was truly relentless. He finally understood why the 18 riders of Yanyun were so formidable. Such training could only breed excellence. At the end of the day, Cheng Chumo bore numerous whip marks. Bloodied, yet uncomplaining. The special forces were similarly affected, some even coughing up blood. They had witnessed the true essence of ruthlessness. As Cheng Chumo lay on his bed, he refrained from lamenting. To ascend to the pinnacle, one must traverse through thorns. For 3 consecutive days, Cheng Chumo did not mount a horse. Each day involved nothing but running alongside them. Failure to keep up resulted in punishment. By order of His Majesty, a eunuch approached Cheng Chumo with a bow. Cheng Chumo returned the gesture. His Majesty commands you to prepare a military fund of 1 million guan. Cheng Chumo acknowledged this and understood that the matter of deploying troops against the Turks had become public knowledge. Yet the noble families remained silent on the subject of military funding. With no other options, Li Shimin resorted to a decisive strategy, compelling Cheng Chumo to devise a solution. Has His Majesty indicated how I should proceed? Cheng Chumo inquired. His Majesty has stated that you may act as you see fit. The military funds must be gathered within a month. Should you fail, the responsibility shall fall upon you, the eunuch replied with a smile. Cheng Chumo's expression shifted. To place the burden upon me? Absolutely not. Assuring the eunuch, he declared, rest assured, I will procure the necessary funds. After the eunuch's departure, Cheng Chumo sought permission from the rider, only to receive a swift strike across his back. Defeated, he resolved to pursue financial means that very night. As night fell, with no time for rest, Cheng Chumo descended to the city, brandishing the token given to him by the eunuch. With this token, he could access any place at any time. The gatekeeper, upon seeing the token, hastily opened the gates. Cheng Chumo strode into the city, savoring the liberating sensation. He made his way to the Li family of Longxi, kicking the door a few times. The guards opened the door, furious, but upon recognizing Cheng Chumo, they quickly silenced themselves. Summon your master to see me, Cheng Chumo commanded. The guards, fearful, hurried to relay the message. Before long, Li Jia appeared, rushing out. He dared not provoke Cheng Chumo again, fearing the consequences of a second encounter. I apologize for not greeting you, Lord Cheng, during your late-night visit, he stammered, hoping to appease him. Cheng Chumo nodded and stepped inside, as if he were the master of the house. He entered the hall. I have heard that the Li family of Longxi is quite wealthy. Last time, I foolishly agreed to release you for a mere 100 taels, but I have since reconsidered. Now, I demand 50,000 taels from you, Cheng Chumo asserted. Li Jia's expression darkened. Does Cheng Chumo truly dare to make such a demand? Does he comprehend the significance of 50,000 taels? That amount could procure 5,000 cattle or a mountain of grain. It is simply unattainable. We, the Longxi Li family, respect you, Cheng Duma, but that does not imply we fear you. Do not overstep your bounds, Li Jia retorted angrily, knowing that granting 50,000 taels would lead to dire consequences from his clan. You possess audacity. Do not blame me, Cheng Chumo, for being ruthless. Prepare yourself for my wrath, Cheng Chumo declared as he turned to leave. Li Jia trembled. Decapitation? He wished to call out to Cheng Chumo, but refrained, for he had no funds to offer. Cheng Chumo departed from the Li residence and continued to the next. He visited 7 families in total, and predictably, none offered him any money. Upon arriving at the Changsun residence, he confronted Changsun Wuji directly. Pay me 10,000 taels in compensation for the harm inflicted upon me. And if you refuse, you shall regret it. Changsun Wuji laughed in anger. I will not pay. Let us see how you will act. Cheng Chumo gave him a thumbs up, acknowledging his boldness. He took his leave and returned to his fief to rest, for he needed to train the next day. If he did not sleep, he would not meet the training standards and risk being punished by a cavalryman. For 3 consecutive days, Cheng Chumo trained during the day and at night summoned ministers for funds, yet none complied. On the new day, he did not accompany the horses. By day he rode, and by night, he slept atop the horse, forbidden from falling off. If he did, he would face a beating. The horses were forced to stand while he dozed. After an hour on one horse, he would switch to another without letting his feet touch the ground, lest he disturb the steed. Failure to execute this properly would result in a severe punishment. Cheng Chumo rode as if he were soothing a child, fearful of causing any harm. Crack! Another whip struck him. The horse neighed, and Cheng Chumo endured the pain in silence. At dawn, he rode with elite soldiers into the city, under the watchful eye of a cavalryman, unable to leave his mount. Cheng Chumo decided to make an example of the Li family, knowing Li Jia was easily intimidated. He charged in and seized Li Jia. The elite soldiers were unsure how to proceed, as the Li family's gates were tightly shut. One cavalryman rode one horse while leading another, covering the second horse's eyes with black cloth. He touched its mane and cracked the whip. The warhorse charged toward the gate. Just as it was about to crash into the barrier, the cavalryman switched horses and pulled the reins sharply, turning the horse around. Boom! The gate burst open, and the warhorse collapsed, foaming at the mouth. Cheng Chumo felt immense sorrow. However, such was the fate of a warhorse. Only those that died in battle could truly be called warhorses. Chapter 41. Making an example of others, the elite soldiers stormed into the Li residence, driving the household servants into the courtyard. The Li family was nowhere to be found. It appeared they had fled. Cheng Chumo's expression darkened. He had not expected the noble family to abandon their home. Did they not care about their reputation? Apparently, they did not, for they had merely gone to visit relatives. Very well, do not blame me, Cheng Chumo, for being ruthless. Cheng Chumo departed the Li residence with his soldiers, commencing his campaign of intimidation. A group of butchers began slaughtering chickens at the Li family's doorstep, creating a gruesome scene, with blood flowing profusely. The air was thick with the stench of blood. Not only the butchers, but also the townsfolk flocked to the Li family's entrance to slaughter chickens. Cheng Chumo had proclaimed that anyone who killed a chicken at their doorstep would receive a coin. What a clever tactic to instill fear. The Li family fled. Yet other families remained. Each time they witnessed a crowd slaughtering chickens, they recoiled, feeling a chill run down their spines. The children of Chang'an dared not venture outside. After 3 consecutive days, the Li family could no longer endure. If this continued, the Li residence would no longer be known as such. It could be renamed the Chicken Slaughterhouse. Li Jia arrived at the fief, gazing at the large tree from a distance, gritting his teeth before knocking on the door. He resolved to pay, as money could be provided, but he could not allow Cheng Chumo to spread word of it. Upon meeting Cheng Chumo, who was mounted, he lamented, "You are indeed shameless, coming here to intimidate me with your tactics. If you had paid sooner, none of this would have happened. And you still owe me compensation for my recent losses." Li Jia bowed and agreed. Having already offered 50,000 taels, he could afford to part with a little more. Resolving the matter swiftly was the best course of action, for he could not predict what further tricks Cheng Chumo might employ. "Cheng Duma, rest assured. I shall deliver the funds tonight, but you must not disclose this to anyone else," Li Jia implored, appearing as subservient as ever. This was not mere pretense. He was genuinely in a subservient position, begging for Cheng Chumo's favor. Cheng Chumo responded coolly. Li Jia departed. Cheng Chumo turned to Xia Zhu and instructed, "Inform the chicken slaughterers to move to another household. If there are no chickens, pigs will suffice. A coin will be given for each chicken slaughtered, and 5 coins for pigs." Xia Zhu complied, stifling her laughter. The master is truly formidable. While the phrase killing chickens to warn the monkeys was merely a metaphor, he has taken it literally, and it has proven effective. At the Wang residence, a group of strong men were slaughtering pigs at the entrance. These pigs were smaller than modern ones, not as plump or robust. The cries of the pigs echoed throughout half of Chang'an. After the slaughter, they immediately began to render the lard on site. While the pork was unpalatable, the cracklings were delectable, and the lard could be used for cooking. The pig trotters were left behind, bloodied and discarded. In the Hall of Justice, laughter erupted from Li Shimin, tears streaming down his face. What a brilliant tactic. It is truly impressive that Cheng Chumo conceived such a plan. The guards were busy transporting chickens and ducks to the Hall of Justice, gifts from Cheng Chumo. Some townsfolk, reluctant to consume them, sold them to Cheng Chumo instead. There were too many. Cheng Chumo decided to improve the dining provisions for Li Shimin. Li Shimin was indifferent. Chicken would suffice. Empress Chengsuan's face was taut with concern as the palace maids gathered in the Hall of Justice to pluck feathers. The palace had transformed into a slaughterhouse. "Erlang, tell Chumo to cease sending these, will you?" Empress Chengsuan's voice was filled with grievance, akin to that of a wronged wife. "That is not feasible. I have promised him that he may do as he wishes. If I send the chickens back now, what if he ceases his work?" Li Shimin replied. "Purely an excuse. It is not as if he will pluck the feathers himself. He is unconcerned," Empress Changsun retorted, her face reddening with anger. Li Shimin feigned nonchalance, pretending not to notice. Empress Changsun strode away in a huff. Zhang Liang requested an audience. The eunuch announced, "Let him in." Zhang Liang entered, bowing respectfully. "Your Majesty, Cheng Chumo has gone too far. He has extorted 50,000 taels from the Li family of Longxi. Zhang Liang's wife is from the Longxi Li clan, and most powerful ministers are allied through marriage with noble families." Li Shimin frowned, displeased. Zhang Liang seemed to be defending his father-in-law. "Cheng Chumo conducts himself with great prudence. He does not seek your wealth," Li Shimin stated curtly. Zhang Liang was taken aback, suddenly realizing that Li Shimin vehemently opposed ministers marrying into noble families. Due to his inability to marry, Li Shimin sought the hand of a noble family's daughter, only to be met with scorn and accusations of shamelessness from the aristocracy. While many ministers had such alliances, he found himself excluded. Marrying into a noble family was a symbol of status, a fashionable trend of the Tang dynasty, and a mark of honor. Zhang Liang openly admitted his mistake, which greatly pleased Li Shimin, who appreciated this quality in him. With a gentler tone, he noted the insufficient funds for the campaign against the Turks and acknowledged Zhang Mo's assistance in alleviating his worries, suggesting that he help him. Zhang Liang rose to respond, offering to contribute 20,000 guan. Li Shimin's satisfaction with Zhang Liang increased. He invited him to stay and drink with him. Zhang Liang felt a sense of quiet triumph, as he had promised to deliver 50,000 guan to Cheng Chumo, yet he would only personally contribute 20,000, leaving 30,000 to be arranged. Li Shimin remained unaware of these dealings, believing Zhang Liang to be wholeheartedly loyal. After drinking, Zhang Liang exited the palace and went to the Wang family, clearly stating his intentions. The Wang family had suffered greatly under Cheng Chumo's demands and were already considering paying. "Lord Wang, would you be content to give money to Cheng Chumo to gain merit? Why not give it to me instead? Once I gather the military funds and present them to the court, we can jointly impeach Cheng Chumo," proposed Zhang Liang. The head of the Wang family smiled, agreeing that they could provide the funds, but insisted that Cheng Chumo must not receive any credit. Very well, let it be so. 50,000 guan. After leaving the Wang family, Zhang Liang visited Shui Wanche. Upon meeting, he greeted him, "Old Shui, how have you been lately?" Shui Wanche appeared disheveled and haggard. A look of frustration etched on his face as he replied with a bitter smile, "You jest, Zhang." Zhang Liang clarified his purpose, and Shui Wanche, his eyes bloodshot with deep enmity towards Cheng Chumo, coldly stated, "I will follow your lead, brother Zhang. I have 2,000 guan here, take it all." Zhang Liang's lips curled into a satisfied smile, reveling in the irony that Cheng Chumo was unwittingly sowing his own demise. Zhang Liang then proceeded to the residence of Changsun Wuji, where he received a warm welcome. Their relationship had flourished during their time at the Qin Wang residence. And upon hearing Zhang Liang's scheme, Changsun Wuji laughed heartily, "Let it be done." At this moment, Cheng Chumo remained oblivious to the fact that he was being outmaneuvered, having offended all the princes and ministers, with the fruits of his labor slipping from his grasp. Li Jia sent only 100 guan, while the remaining 50,000 were directly handed to Zhang Liang. As Li's family son-in-law, he faced no opposition. A week later, during the morning court, Zhang Liang had successfully gathered the military funds. Li Shimin praised his efforts, remarking on the impressive outcome. "I impeach Cheng Chumo for his misconduct, which has alarmed the populace of Chang'an," declared a minister. Changsun Wuji bowed, adding, "I also impeach Cheng Chumo for unlawfully invading the homes of citizens." An official from the Li family remarked, "I impeach Cheng Chumo for riding through Chang'an while the commoners dare not voice their anger." Cui Jin chimed in, but Li Shimin remained impassive, recognizing that military funding was of utmost importance. He understood the underlying motives of their impeachment against Cheng Chumo. Without his earlier actions to instill fear, the funds would not have materialized. Having received the funds, their sole desire was for Li Shimin to punish Cheng Chumo. As the ministers collectively impeached Cheng Chumo, Li Shimin had no choice but to act, issuing an edict to revoke Cheng Chumo's barony. The ministers were taken aback. This was the first instance of someone being stripped of their noble title. It was a clear demonstration of Li Shimin's resolve to maintain order. "Let it be known to all noble officials to exercise caution," he declared, earning the collective reverence of the court. Chapter 42. The escape upon receiving the imperial edict. Cheng Chumo sat dumbfounded on his horse. "Is my barony truly lost? I dedicated myself to my duties, only to lose my title?" His expression darkened as he pondered the nature of Li Shimin's reign. Following the eunuch's departure, military personnel arrived, and upon meeting Cheng Chumo, they bluntly stated their purpose. "I have come for the horseshoes." Cheng Chumo, incensed, retorted, "What do you need horseshoes for? Get lost." With a slam, he shut the door. Furious at the audacity of the request, today's training concludes. Tomorrow, we begin lessons in horseback combat. There will be no need to sleep on horseback tonight. After cleaning himself, Cheng Chumo entered Princess Danyang's chamber. She was embroidering, and upon seeing him, she rose to fetch his outer garment. "Why do you seem so troubled today?" she inquired. Cheng Chumo sighed, feeling the weight of his frustrations. "It's a thankless endeavor. The emperor is unjust." Princess Danyang remained silent, aware that speaking ill of Li Shimin was perilous, especially when he treated his own sister so harshly. "Do not discuss emotions with a sovereign. They are the most heartless of all," she advised, settling into his embrace. Unbeknownst to her, she pondered how long such days could last. Should Cheng Chumo lose favor, what would become of her? Would she be forced to remarry? Such thoughts haunted her, especially if Li Shimin were to treat Cheng Chumo as he had dealt with Shui Wanche. Cheng Chumo would undoubtedly resist such a fate, but what would his outcome be? Even if the Cheng family possessed influence, would it be enough to shield him from demotion? History had shown that Princess Danyang ultimately met a tragic end, likely due to defying Li Shimin's wishes. "Chumo, is it not better to inherit the title of duke? The court is truly not suited for you." Princess Danyang voiced her feelings. Cheng Chumo, once unaware, now understood that many matters were beyond one's control. "Head of the household, Xiazhu has something to discuss with you," came a voice from outside the door. Cheng Chumo rose to greet Xiazhu, who informed him, "I have discovered that Zhang Liang is orchestrating a collective impeachment against you." "What shall I do?" Cheng Chumo inquired. "Now is the time to solidify your position. It is imperative that no one suspects you are a time traveler." Xiazhu replied thoughtfully. "We must retaliate against Zhang Liang," Cheng Chumo decided, nodding in agreement. "Gather the special forces," Xiazhu affirmed, and promptly left. Cheng Chumo returned to his quarters to dress, instructing, "Get some rest. I have matters to attend to." Accompanied by the special forces, he departed his fiefdom, heading straight for Chang'an. Armed with a token, he entered the city without hindrance. Arriving at Zhang Liang's residence, he quietly planned an assassination, targeting Zhang Liang himself. "Move in swiftly," Cheng Chumo whispered to his team. The special forces dispersed into the shadows, infiltrating Zhang Liang's home. As the front door swung open, Cheng Chumo entered with an air of authority. In the living room, Zhang Liang and Shui Wanche were engaged in revelry. They stared at Cheng Chumo in shock. And as Zhang Liang regained his composure, his face flushed with anger. "How dare you trespass upon the Duke's estate?" he bellowed, calling for assistance. Cheng Chumo, however, wore a cold smile, observing the unfolding drama. While others may not grasp Zhang Liang's true nature, he was all too aware. "Speak louder," Cheng Chumo taunted. The special forces had already neutralized all threats. Nodding to them, Cheng Chumo approached the table. Zhang, your impeachment against me was instigated by you. Yet you squandered your chance at survival, he remarked, his tone laced with irony. Shui Wanqie could no longer tolerate the situation and rushed toward Cheng Chumo. Just a step away from Cheng, he was taken down by a soldier. Without pausing, the soldier delivered a series of 4 kicks to Shui Wanqie's limbs. Shui looked on in terror, his joints dislocated. What kind of technique was this? So skillful, who was he? The soldier raised his foot to kick Shui Wanqie's neck, intent on ending his life. Cheng Chumo quickly intervened, knowing it was not permissible to kill. Even Li Shimin needed a pretext to eliminate Shui Wanqie. He could not afford to commit murder, for if Shui Wanqie were to die, even Cheng Yaojin could not protect him. The soldier retreated to Cheng Chumo's side, as if the recent events had nothing to do with him. The special forces watched with envy. This was the essence of a true soldier. Cheng Chumo squatted down and patted Shui Wanqie's face. You shall live a few more days, but behave yourself in the future. Shui Wanqie was utterly frightened. Cheng Chumo then turned to Zhang Liang, who sat dazed, his expression unchanged. How do you wish to meet your end? Cheng Chumo threatened. Zhang Liang remained silent. The soldier stepped forward and kicked him. Only then did Zhang Liang snap out of his stupor. He glared at Cheng Chumo, aware deep down that Cheng would not dare to harm him, yet fear lingered. Cheng Chumo found the encounter tiresome and departed the living room with the soldier. They made their way to the storeroom. Upon seeing the mountain of wealth, Cheng Chumo's anger intensified. With so many aristocratic families, how could there only be 100,000? The rest must be here. He could not allow Shui to benefit. Take it away. Yes. Transport all the copper coins back to the fief and hide them well. Gather everyone. Cheng Chumo commanded. Soon, all had assembled. He decided to shut down all factories. The brickworks, ironworks, and paper mills were all to cease operations. The windmills were dismantled and essential components hidden away. Cheng Chumo, along with key personnel, advanced toward Fufeng County, wishing to evade trouble and avoid the storm. Meanwhile, the eunuchs and soldiers arrived to capture Cheng Chumo. Upon witnessing the desolate fief, the eunuchs were taken aback. He fled? They hurried back to report. At the hall of establishment, Cheng Chumo's whereabouts were unknown. The eunuch bowed. Li Shimin's face darkened. He realized that this treatment was unfair to Cheng Chumo. He hadn't expected this fool to beat Shui Wanqie and Zhang Liang before simply absconding. There was no recourse. Cheng had committed no crime and could go wherever he pleased. Ha ha ha. Empress Changsun chuckled lightly. It was she who had taught Cheng Chumo to flee before being convicted. This disciple was commendable. He escaped before any judgment was passed, leaving one to wonder how Zhang Liang would respond. What about the iron? Li Shimin inquired. It's gone. The ironworks have been shut down, the eunuch replied. And the paper? Li Shimin asked again, already suspecting the answer. It too has been shut down, as anticipated. Forget about the horseshoes. Li Shimin suppressed his fury. He could not send anyone after Cheng Chumo, as doing so would escalate matters. He turned to Empress Changsun. Guanyin maid, how do you propose we handle this? Humph. The mischief was all Cheng Chumo's doing, yet Zhang Liang reaps the rewards. Had it been me, I would have struck him too, Empress Changsun exclaimed. Indignant that all the credit went to Zhang Liang while Cheng Chumo worked diligently, yet lost his rank. Li Shimin felt helpless. He did not wish to punish Cheng Chumo, yet the aristocrats had already paid off, and the officials were clamoring for punishment. Bring him back. With the expedition imminent, he must go procure provisions. Empress Changsun did not respond. Go find him yourself. Who knows where he has run off to? Li Shimin began to coax her. This was a matter only the Guanyin maid could resolve, for that foolish lad would heed her words. Guanyin maid, would you like to enjoy a few days out? Empress Changsun was tempted. Then I shall help your majesty search for him, she replied with a giggle, looking pleased. Li Shimin was speechless. Chapter 43. Special forces in action at this moment. Cheng Chumo had covered 100 miles from Chang'an. While fleeing, he was also training. However, mere training was insufficient. He had plans of his own for this outing. Real combat was necessary. The current capabilities of the special forces could not compare to those of a regular army. Engaging bandits was still manageable. Each special forces soldier rode 3 horses, with the remaining steeds tasked with pulling carts. A pair of craftsmen accompanied each cart, crafting crossbow bolts within. Ahead lay a mountain stronghold. During the Jingguan era, bandits were plentiful, euphemistically referred to as green forest, a gilded label for mere thieves and rogues. One soldier raised his whip, pointing at the stronghold without uttering a word. Cheng Chumo understood. From here, we attack the stronghold, he bellowed. The special forces charged toward the stronghold. The bandits, realizing the approach of the special forces, began to shoot arrows. The skills learned by the special forces found practical application. The bandits, positioned above, shot arrows downwards, but the special forces bent low over their horses, successfully evading the incoming projectiles. Cheng Chumo joined the assault, finding the secret techniques taught by the soldier truly effective. It was inevitable that some steeds would fall. Upon reaching the base of the stronghold, the war horses crashed through the gates, and the special forces surged inside. After an hour of combat, Cheng Chumo emerged from the stronghold, bloodied but resolute. While the special forces carried out numerous large chests, upon opening them, they revealed treasures of gold, silver, and jewels, with the majority being curved sabers. One soldier picked up a curved saber and regarded it for a long moment before passing it to Cheng Chumo, indicating he should wield it. Cheng Chumo accepted it, having originally intended to use a butterfly knife, but that was no longer feasible. The special forces reported their casualties, 10 warhorses lost, and 2 soldiers deceased. This marked the first loss for the special forces. Cheng Chumo's expression darkened. There was no way in warfare to ensure only the enemy perished while one's own troops remained unscathed, unless they trained to the level of the Yenyun 18 riders. Cheng Chumo steadied his emotions. We have lost 2 brothers. My heart aches profoundly, yet all we can do is grieve. No one can be brought back to life. Do you wish for our brothers to remain unscathed? He bellowed. Yes. The special forces cried out, tears in their eyes. Cheng Chumo pointed at the soldier who had taught them. His brothers number 13. They fought 500 without defeat and pursued the enemy for 300 miles without a single casualty. Those injured were none, for their martial skills are high, and high martial skills can protect their brothers. From today onward, we shall double our training. Yes. They buried the 2 special forces soldiers. And Cheng Chumo felt a heavy weight in his heart. The soldier patted Cheng Chumo on the shoulder and gestured toward the horses. Cheng Chumo nodded and mounted. The soldier led the special forces back to the stronghold, returning with a string of ears as a record of their achievements. Cheng Chumo, adept at mathematics, found this unnecessary. Bury them. The special forces complied, recording the tally before burying the ears. They set fire to the stronghold, which blazed brightly. Next one, Cheng Chumo declared, taking the lead in searching. They passed through a village, where the villagers, upon seeing Cheng Chumo, hurriedly called out to gather the townsfolk. The villagers emerged, each carrying their meager provisions, lamenting their dire situation. We truly have no food left, bandit chief, the village head declared, his eyes betraying a deep-seated resentment. How far are the bandits? Cheng Chumo asked coldly. The village head scrutinized him anew, realizing that these individuals were not mere bandits. He pointed in a specific direction. 10 miles away, they are not human. They have slain my son, murdered my wife, and abducted my daughter. If you possess the power to avenge us, the people of this village will honor you as our lord for generations to come. One either erupts in silence or perishes in it. Upon finishing his words, the village head bowed deeply. Why do you not kneel? Cheng Chumo questioned. In this era, kneeling is reserved for the deceased. To bow before another is to curse them with impending death. The villagers collectively inclined their bodies. It is difficult to fathom the torment endured by this village of fewer than 1,000 souls, subjected to relentless oppression. I, Cheng Chumo, shall avenge your grievances, he proclaimed, turning his horse towards the direction indicated by the village head. Upon arriving at the bandit stronghold, he observed that it was twice the size of the one he had just annihilated. Cheng Chumo refrained from storming in immediately. 2 special forces soldiers had already perished, and he bore the responsibility. If he acted at night, those 2 brothers might have survived. He chose to rest in place as dusk fell. The bandit lair was ablaze with light, and muffled sounds of revelry drifted from within. Cheng Chumo assessed the sky and decided it was time to act. The special forces began their infiltration, and Cheng Chumo positioned himself at the entrance. 2 bandits were boasting. That woman from Wang village was truly something. What a pity she's dead. Young girls are better. Their lewd expressions stirred his anger. With a firm grip on his curved blade, he waited for the opportune moment. With 2 swift strokes, the bandits fell, their heads kicked away and bodies concealed. He pushed open the main door and called out, "Leave some for me." Disguising himself as a bandit, he noted the lack of vigilance. There were hardly any sentinels. Unlike an army, having 2 guards at the entrance was sufficient. The rest were gathered in the hall, indulging in excess. The special forces infiltrated the stronghold entirely. Cheng Chumo observed the hall filled with raucous bandits who were drinking. He signaled for the special forces to remain hidden, instructing them to wait. After an hour, during which one bandit emerged and met his demise at Cheng Chumo's blade, the noise within the hall began to diminish, indicating that many had drunk too much. With a wave of his hand, the special forces surged forward, engaging the bandits in combat. Some bandits, caught off guard, fell before they even realized what was happening. Who dares to provoke us, the Black Wind stronghold? A voice cried as one bandit awakened. The special forces continued their assault, clashing with the bandits. The intoxicated minds were alert, but their bodies failed them, leading to swift slaughter at the hands of the special forces. The ground became littered with corpses. Suddenly, a bandit, already wounded, launched a surprise attack on one of the special forces. A dagger plunged into the soldier's back. The bandit grinned as he fell, while the soldier, filled with despair, looked towards his comrades and then at Cheng Chumo before collapsing. Cheng Chumo's eyes turned crimson. Another life lost, one that should not have perished. Finish him, he roared. The special forces, their eyes ablaze with fury, knew they must deliver a final blow regardless of the outcome. This was a lesson steeped in blood. To kill, one must empty the magazine. Do not be deceived by television dramas. Firing a single shot and striking a pose is pure folly. Who can guarantee a kill with just one shot? If humans were so fragile, they would have long been extinct. Once the final blows were dealt, silence fell over the battlefield. Each soldier was engulfed in self-reproach for not delivering that last strike. This was a form of growth, albeit at a high cost. They began to clear the battlefield, uncovering a bounty of grain and treasures. Cheng Chumo resolved to share these spoils with the villagers. Upon returning, the villagers awaited eagerly, and the women who had been abducted rushed back to their husbands, hesitant to embrace them. The men clutched their wives tightly, grateful for their survival. knowing that their own lives would have been meaningless without them. The special forces left behind all the provisions and treasures. From that day forth, the village became known as Mo Village, with the villagers adopting the surname Mo, and the village head becoming Old Mo. The people of the village grew fierce and resolute. They taught their children but one lesson. It matters not if one cannot win, but whether one dares to exchange lives. Mo Village could also be known as Black Dog Village, fiercely loyal to Chungcheonmo. Chapter 44. The arrival of Empress Changsun in Fufeng County. The three administrative districts of Jingzhaoyin, Zhuafengxiang, and Yufufeng are collectively referred to as Chang'an's three auxiliaries, or the three Qins. Chungcheonmo entered the city. His demeanor transformed by the bloodshed. He exuded a palpable aura of menace that instilled fear in all who encountered him. A contingent of 500 soldiers marching into the city was no trivial matter. The city lord promptly dispatched scouts, and upon learning that it was Cheng Yaojin's eldest son, Chungcheonmo, he personally led a welcoming party. Regardless of his status as a noble or bureaucrat, the city lord dared not neglect the honor due. A name must be upheld, and a shadow cast. The reputation of the Chaos Demon King was not merely a title. A general's achievements echo through eternity. Upon meeting Chungcheonmo, the officials bowed in deference. This humble official, Li Bin, pays respects to Duke Chung. It was evident that he hailed from the Li family of Longxi. Chungcheonmo met his gaze with disdain, recalling how Li Jia had promised him 50,000 but delivered only 100, an act of betrayal. Which branch of the Longxi Li family do you represent? Even prominent families are divided into factions. The war god Li Jing stands apart, while another faction is led by the family head, Wang Bin replied, observing Chungcheonmo's expression. Noting a slight easing of tension in Chungcheonmo's demeanor, Wang Bin silently breathed a sigh of relief. Please, allow me to escort you to the government office. Wang Bin led the way. As a mere official without a title, he could not compare to Chungcheonmo, who was a baron of Fufeng County. Though he no longer held that title, Wang Bin was unaware. Fufeng County served as the capital of Fufeng Prefecture, essentially Chungcheonmo's domain. If he were to receive a title, it would likely be within Fufeng Prefecture. Upon arriving at the government office, Wang Bin arranged a banquet. Chungcheonmo did not refuse. Having not enjoyed a peaceful meal in days, after dining, the customary exchange of gifts commenced. Wang Bin sought to ingratiate himself with Chungcheonmo, producing a list of gifts to present to him. Duke Chung, please take a look. These are the local specialties of our Fufeng Prefecture, a token from the people. Have you never seen a pig run if you've never eaten pork? Chungcheonmo understood the underlying motives. Opening the list revealed 10 pearls, 1,000 taels of gold, and more. Unlike the dramatized portrayals on television, this was merely a list, with no physical items on display, a precaution against any potential grievances. I accept these gifts. Chungcheonmo stated as he set down the list. Li Bin's smile widened. He raised a toast, and Chungcheonmo graciously accepted. After several rounds of drinks, Chungcheonmo excused himself to rest. A servant approached Li Bin with a letter. After reading it, Li Bin's brow furrowed before breaking into a smile. Chungcheonmo is indeed fierce. He has dealt a harsh blow to 2 dukes before fleeing. Sir, should we not reconsider our reception standards? Chungcheonmo is no longer merely a baron, the advisor suggested. The steward is a quintessential sycophant, and those in power are often no different. Yet, Li Bin merely chuckled. The steward, with his head in the clouds, is utterly oblivious. He knows nothing of substance. Is the background of Chungcheonmo merely that of a baron? One must consider who Chungcheonmo's father is. Steward, do not speak recklessly. If Prince Chung hears you, I cannot guarantee your safety, Li Bin warned, casting a sharp glance at the steward, who immediately fell silent. Even the Duke of State is not beyond reproach. What is he in comparison? Have you pondered why? Upon Chungcheonmo's departure from Chang'an, His Majesty did not send anyone to pursue him? It is because His Majesty wishes to contain the situation. Li Bin then continued. It must be acknowledged that Li Bin possesses considerable talent. To serve as the governor of a prefecture is no trivial feat. His deductions are astute. At that moment, a soldier rushed in, bearing a message. This is from the military, he announced. Li Bin hastily opened the correspondence. Matters of the military are not to be taken lightly. It was a letter from Yuqi Jingda, straightforward in its contents. Prepare to receive the imperial entourage, as Empress Changsun is arriving in Fufeng County. Quickly, make the necessary arrangements at the government office. Li Bin commanded. The arrival of Empress Changsun in Fufeng County is no small affair. If the reception is inadequate, he might as well return home to tend to his children. Yuqi Jingda commands the Xuanjia Iron Cavalry, who would dare to neglect his duties in escorting the Empress, unless they seek their own demise? In the village of Mo Village, the imperial entourage arrives, and the villagers greet them. Empress Changsun wears a smile, while the village head dares not lift his gaze. Your village name is quite interesting, the Empress remarked, having already heard of Chungcheonmo's deeds along the way. He had eliminated all the bandits. Satisfied with this, Empress Changsun resolved to reward Chungcheonmo handsomely upon meeting him. Li Shimin had informed her that if matters could not be settled, she could promise to restore his title. Empress Changsun decided to elevate Chungcheonmo's rank by 1 grade. Though she lacked the authority, her words carried weight. The village head explained the origin of the village's name, and Empress Changsun's esteem for Chungcheonmo grew. Old Mo, how is life treating you here? She inquired kindly. This statement resonated deeply with the village head, A life free from bandits is indeed a good life. With a surge of courage, he thought that the Empress, a celestial being, speaking so warmly to him was enough to boast about for a lifetime. He bowed again, saying, "Thanks to our benefactor for clearing all bandits within 100 miles, we can now eat to our fill. To be well fed is merely the beginning." Empress Changsun smiled and nodded. If the people of the Tang dynasty can all be well fed, that would signify a prosperous era. She instructed Yuqi Jingda to leave some provisions for their return journey. In the carriage, Empress Changsun smiled, thinking to herself that Cheng Chumo is indeed a source of ease. Before Yuqi Jingda departed, he shot a glance at the village head. Where did those weapons come from? He asked, noticing children in the distance playing with large swords. Piquing his curiosity, the village head replied truthfully, "They were left by our benefactor." Yuqi Jingda said nothing further, in a time of chaos. Who among the common folk lacked a few knives? This was permitted by the court, and whether they would later be surrendered was beyond Yuqi Jingda's concern. The convoy was 10 miles from Fufeng County when Cheng Chumo rode forth. Li Bin informed him, and Cheng Chumo understood that Empress Changsun would personally greet him outside the city. Upon seeing her, Cheng Chumo wore a face of grievance. "Mother, you must advocate for your son. That scoundrel Zhang Liang is bullying me, and father has even stripped me of my title." Cheng Chumo complained, feigning tears. Empress Changsun, speechless, noted how poorly he was acting. "Fear not, my dear Chumo, your mother is here for you," she reassured him, smiling. Cheng Chumo, leaning on Empress Changsun's arm, ambled along, followed by the grim-faced Yuqi Jingda, who internally cursed Cheng Chumo for being so favored. His jealousy was not unwarranted. Cheng Chumo had not even greeted him, an ingrate, holding a grudge for the last time they had conspired against him. Cheng Chumo's facade crumbled, and he immediately brightened. "Mother, you must stay out for several days this time. The palace is stifling," he cheerfully suggested. Empress Changsun appreciated this sentiment, having no intention of returning early. "When the emperor inquires about me, I shall say I am still searching for you," she added, casting a sidelong glance at Cheng Chumo. He scratched his head and grinned foolishly. Empress Changsun's mood lifted further. Cheng Chumo proposed a barbecue on the spot. Unfamiliar with the concept of barbecuing, Empress Changsun nonetheless nodded her approval. She was here for enjoyment. Cheng Chumo slaughtered a sheep and began grilling the meat, sending someone to fetch wine from the city. Once the meat was ready, mother and son sat down to feast. Yuqi Jingda, watching, felt a pang of envy, as Cheng Chumo had not offered him a single skewer of meat. Surprised that Cheng Chumo could even barbecue, Empress Changsun remarked, "Eating a piece of meat hardly suits the demeanor of a motherly figure." Deep down, she relished the lifestyle of the grasslands. Chapter 45. Empress Changsun's teachings. Once I become a general and embark on expeditions, barbecues will lack soul without chili peppers, Cheng Chumo stated. "Very well. Mother will await your return with the chili peppers," Empress Changsun replied, though she had no idea what they were. "Where did you hide the horseshoes?" "Your father has searched the territory without finding them," she inquired, intrigued as to how so much iron could vanish overnight. Cheng Chumo, brimming with pride, retorted, "One person can hide them so well that 10 cannot find them. I concealed them in the Chang'an villa." During the time Cheng Chumo transported money from Zhang Liang's house, he had no empty card, so he secretly stashed the horseshoes in the villa. The most perilous places are often the safest. Even Li Shimin would be hard-pressed to uncover them. With laughter, Empress Changsun expressed her delight. Erlang never dreamed that Cheng Chumo would hide the horseshoes in Chang'an. Having eaten their fill, Empress Changsun rose. Cheng Chumo quickly assisted her, saying, "Mother, take care, be as attentive as you can. Let us head into the city." Empress Changsun instructed. Cheng Chumo complied, taking the lead and clearing the way for the carriage, effectively replacing Yuqi Jingda. Upon entering the city, Li Bin and the officials were there to greet them, though Empress Changsun ignored him. Arriving at the government office, she frowned, gazing at the extravagantly decorated premises, and remarked, "Such ostentation, whose idea was this?" Li Bin nearly fainted, hastily bowing and explaining, "I am guilty of this transgression." Empress Changsun did not regard him, continuing to scrutinize the government office. "You are unaware," she said, her expression devoid of any semblance of mirth, starkly contrasting with her demeanor when she met Cheng Chumo. Li Bin felt a bead of sweat trickle down his forehead. He was doomed. Empress Changsun shot a glare at Cheng Chumo. This foolish boy does not even know to plead for leniency. He cannot cooperate at all. How troublesome. How is he fit for office? Cheng Chumo, trailing behind Empress Changsun, was secretly reveling in the preferential treatment he was receiving. "Indeed, I am Cheng Chumo," he thought. Empress Changsun shook her head, realizing she could not rely on him. "You are Li Bin, correct?" Before entering the city, Chumo spoke highly of you. "Had it not been for his commendation of your diligence, I would certainly have informed His Majesty of the truth." Li Bin shuddered at the thought. If she reported to His Majesty, he would surely be dismissed from his position. With a face full of gratitude, he looked at Cheng Chumo, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and silently rejoiced at not having neglected him. Unexpectedly, Cheng Chumo's words carried such weight with the Empress. He bowed deeply to Cheng, expressing his thanks. Cheng Chumo, finally realizing the impact of his words, nodded in acknowledgement. Only then did Empress Changsun cease her criticisms, directing her gaze towards a carefully arranged rockery, elegantly designed with thoughtfulness. This was akin to delivering a slap followed by a sweet date. indirectly elevating Cheng Chimo's status. Is this what it means to be an empress? After a moment of rebuke, she offered praise. Li Bin felt as if he had been touched by divine grace, nearly moved to tears. The imperial favor was vast. Had the empress directly praised him, the effect would have been entirely different. Cheng Chimo admired her secretly, giving a discreet thumbs up to Empress Changsun. Noticing this, she chose to ignore him. More practice was needed. It was difficult to imagine how the princes would be shaped under Empress Changsun's guidance. They would undoubtedly be astute individuals. Upon entering the hall, all present bowed and withdrew, leaving only Cheng Chimo behind, as the others lacked the privilege to accompany the empress. Cheng Chimo picked up an apple, polished it, and presented it to the empress. Mother, this apple is quite sweet. Empress Changsun accepted it, but did not eat. Can you not peel it? Only then did Cheng Chimo sit down to peel the fruit, cutting it into small pieces and placing them on a plate. When the empress tasted a piece, it was not a matter of pretentiousness, but rather a question of status. How is Fufeng County? She inquired. Cheng Chimo contemplated briefly. Quite good, he replied. Empress Changsun nodded and instructed him to fetch paper and pen. She began to compose an edict, sealing it upon completion and dispatching someone to deliver it to Chang'an. Cheng Chimo took the edict outside and handed it to Yuqi Jingda, who appeared indifferent. Yuqi Jingda's complexion darkened. Wait until your father returns, he exclaimed angrily, feeling a profound sense of helplessness. Cheng Chimo wore an air of pride. Send it to Chang'an with utmost urgency. Should you delay, I shall inform mother. Yuqi Jingda was nearly infuriated, storming off with the edict in hand. The delivery was completed within a day. Li Shimin gazed at the edict, speechless. Summon Wei Zheng and Fang Xianling. Upon their arrival, Li Shimin presented the edict. The empress possesses keen insight, Wei Zheng remarked. Li Shimin chuckled in frustration. Empress Changsun had documented Cheng Chimo's actions along the way in the edict, requesting that Li Shimin elevate Cheng Chimo's title from baron to viscount, a rank superior to a baron, asserting that suppressing bandits constituted military merit and was legitimate. The ranks were classified into 9 tiers. Legitimate, my foot. Can military merit be equated with suppressing bandits? Li Shimin summoned Wei Zheng precisely to avoid conferring titles. Little did he expect Wei Zheng to unthinkingly support Empress Changsun. He turned to Fang Xianling, who without a moment's hesitation declared, the empress possesses keen insight. Li Shimin opened his mouth, but could not find the words. Continuing to read the edict, he noticed 2 small characters at the bottom, Bun. Haha, the Guanyin maid understands me. Li Shimin laughed heartily. While others may not grasp the meaning behind Bun, Li Shimin was aware of the unspoken understanding he shared with Empress Changsun. It certainly referred to horseshoes. This matter could not be delayed. Li Shimin intended to have horseshoes fitted for the warhorses before dispatching them against the Turks. He decreed that Cheng Chimo be granted the title of Viscount of Fufeng County, with the territory encompassing Fufeng County. Wei Zheng and Fang Xianling complied, offering no rebuttals. This was the first time Li Shimin had managed affairs so smoothly, without any doubts raised. The imperial decree was issued, and Cheng Chimo stared blankly at it, lifting his gaze towards Empress Changsun. Am I truly a viscount? He was somewhat incredulous yet exhilarated, marveling at how a single edict from his mother had elevated him to such a rank. Initially, Li Shimin had been adamant about not granting titles in connection with horseshoes. Cheng Chimo came to understand that pleasing Li Shimin was of little consequence. As long as he maintained the empress's favor, he would want for nothing in the future. He gazed into Empress Changsun's eyes, which began to sparkle. The empress, speechless, pondered what mischief this young man was concocting. Do not indulge in wild thoughts, she advised. Let me inform you, Fufeng County is of paramount importance. Your father has long intended to station his own people here. Empress Changsun spoke gravely. Cheng Chimo perked up, sitting upright to listen intently. Empress Changsun continued, last year, the Turks advanced to the Weishui River, and Fufeng County offered no resistance. Such an event must not recur under your father's watch. You have half a month to address matters here. We shall return to the capital in half a month. Cheng Chimo rose to acknowledge her command. Exiting the government office, he noted that since the empress had not specified how to proceed, he was expected to devise a plan independently. Cheng Chimo's approach was straightforward. He turned to Yuqi Jingda, who felt a shiver under his gaze, sensing mischief afoot. Turning to leave, Yuqi Jingda prepared to receive the edict. Cheng Chimo stated, Yuqi Jingda, you are to heed my command. Yuqi Jingda sighed inwardly, realizing he could not evade this. He bowed to accept the edict. The Xuanjia Iron Cavalry under your command shall be at the disposal of Viscount Cheng Chimo, fully cooperating to cleanse Fufeng County. Cheng Chimo beamed with satisfaction. Yuqi Jingda, seething, found it intolerable that a mere viscount was dictating terms to a duke. He glanced around the hall in resignation. Empress Changsun had overheard, chuckling softly. She could surmise Cheng Chimo's strategy, setting an example. This time, it would not be merely a warning, it would serve as a lesson. Chapter 46. The control of Fufeng County. Cheng Chimo sought out Li Bin, adopting a posture reminiscent of Empress Changsun, hands clasped behind his back. Do you wish for life or death? Li Bin jumped, startled. Death, he exclaimed, hastily bowing. I wish to live. Cheng Chimo silently acknowledged the effectiveness of his mother's methods, producing the imperial decree for Li Bin to see. Upon reading it, Li Bin exclaimed, Congratulations, Cheng Chimo, on your promotion to Viscount. Internally, he was astounded at such rapid advancement. In just a few months, Cheng Chumo had attained a rank that was the lifelong ambition of many. Truly, having someone in the palace makes matters easier. It was clear that the empress had submitted the edict. Cheng Chumo retracted the decree and adopted a serious demeanor. Last year, the Turks passed through your territory, correct? Why was there no resistance? Li Bin nearly fainted from fear, hastily explaining, I am a civil official without troops. The garrison did not mobilize, and I had no means to act. Bring me the information on the garrison's commanders, Cheng Chumo instructed. Knowing oneself and the enemy ensures victory in every battle. Li Bin complied and departed to gather the data. He soon returned, standing beside Cheng Chumo as he read aloud. The main commander of the garrison is Chui Wu, from the Chui family. Why would he refuse to send troops? Could the Turkic invasion be connected to the aristocracy? The thought struck him, revealing a plausible connection. The Turks had traversed from Xiazhou to the Weishui River without obstruction. Had all the local garrisons perished? Rising, he resolved to inform the empress of his suspicions. Arriving at the government office, he approached Empress Changsan. Mother, I suspect a connection between the Chui family and the Turks. Cheng Chumo stated. Empress Changsun showed little reaction. The aristocracy would not collude with the Turks unless they sought to render themselves powerless. Plunging the land of Huaxia into chaos once more, she replied, looking at Cheng Chumo. Initially, your father, compelled by circumstances, instigated the Xuanwu Gate incident, leading to a fractious division within the realm. Various military leaders, supported both by your father and the former crown prince Li Jianqing, surged southward, each vying for the ascendance of their respective champions to the imperial throne. This explains your father's subsequent reticence in addressing the faction loyal to the former crown prince. Cheng Chumo understood. All troops advanced towards Chang'an, leaving the borders vulnerable, a situation that the Turks sought to exploit. The reason the Turks halted their advance upon reaching the Wei River was straightforward. Numerous armies congregated near Chang'an, appearing to be two distinct factions, and any aggressive movement from the Turks would incite a united front against them. Thus, the Turks inadvertently aided Li Shimin in averting a potential conflict. This also elucidates why Li Shimin willingly relinquished all his wealth. Even after vanquishing the Turks, Li Shimin refrained from executing Erli Khan. Chui Wu, regardless of his guilt or innocence, must face death. An excuse is necessary, so arrange it without the need for evidence, merely requiring a justification for actions taken. The Empress Zhangsun reiterated. Cheng Chumo acquiesced. Perhaps this was the true intent behind Li Shimin's decision to send the Empress Zhangsun to Fufeng County. The three auxiliaries must be firmly under his control. The son understands what must be done. Cheng Chumo bowed and departed. The Empress Zhangsun smiled. Li Shimin required evidence to act, but the Empress Zhangsun did not. She rose. During the garden stroll, the palace maidens complied. Princess Danyang participated, her head bowed. The Empress Zhangsun remarked, Your Majesty has always been fair in his dealings. Do not harbor grievances. Though the Empress Zhangsun did not explicitly state it, Princess Danyang understood. This was a signal to refrain from overthinking. Matters would proceed as intended, and the Emperor would not err. Thank you for your guidance, Your Highness, Princess Danyang said. The Empress Zhangsun smiled warmly, taking Princess Danyang's hand. Let me share a poem I composed. Spring excursion in the upper garden. Peach blossoms gleam in the morning light. In the orchid chamber, fair maidens stir with springtime delight. New peaches at the well steal a glance. Young willows by the eaves gracefully dance. Among the flowers, I watch dancing butterflies. In the trees, I listen to the oriole's cries. Why seek distant inquiries beneath the wood? In the realm of elegance, my name is well understood. Upon hearing the poem, Princess Danyang felt a tumult of emotions. This poem, crafted by the Empress Zhangsun during her outing, was undeniably suggestive, and some might even deem it inappropriate. Yet, no one dared to voice such sentiments. The ministers all acknowledged the Empress Zhangsun's genuine character. Was this a reminder to herself to embrace a touch of frivolity? She bowed and expressed her gratitude. The Empress Zhangsun smiled. Why not indulge in revelry during this fleeting life? Drink and sing while the wine flows. Tomorrow may not grant the same opportunity. Suddenly, the Empress Zhangsun retched. Princess Danyang hurriedly steadied her. The Empress Zhangsun's complexion turned pale. Unavoidably, she thought of Li Shimin, cursing him internally. The prime of her youth was being sacrificed to bear his children. Upon returning, she would have to confront him. Once pregnant, she could not linger outside. Addressing the palace maidens, she commanded, summon the prince consort. The maidens complied. Cheng Chumo rushed in. The Empress Zhangsun ordered, eliminate Chui Wu. Once you assume control here, we shall return to the capital. Knowing she was with child, the Empress Zhangsun's temperament grew harsh. Dispose of him. Fabricate any charge you wish. Li Shimin can find a way to justify it. Cheng Chumo nodded, offering no dissenting words. Rest assured, mother. I shall take care of it tonight. The Empress Zhangsun's spirits lifted considerably. Cheng Chumo was indeed a source of comfort. Go now. Night fell. Special forces infiltrated the military camp, donning military attire. They proceeded to the main tent. Cheng Chumo entered. Who goes there? Chui Wu bellowed. I am your father, Cheng Chumo retorted, drawing a curved blade across his throat. Cheng Chumo turned to Li Bin and asked, Is this him? Li Bin, trembling, could scarcely stand. The special forces dragged him forward. It is he. Cheng Chumo nodded, satisfied. The task was complete. Retrieve Chui Wu's transgressions. Tomorrow I shall take command of the camp. Cheng Chumo instructed. Li Bin nodded frantically, fearing that Cheng Chumo might act against him. A general of great repute could order a death without hesitation. Yet, what was Li Bin in comparison? Cheng Chumo pondered but remained uneasy. How many members of the Chui family are in the camp? Li Bin produced a small notebook. Cheng Chumo perused it briefly. Take me there. Through the night, over 100 officers fell victim to the purge. Cheng Chumo executed the task with ruthless efficiency, eliminating all connected to Chui Wu. All members of the Chui family in Fufeng County were imprisoned on numerous charges, including embezzlement of military funds. After all, no official was without guilt. Any accusation would suffice for execution. The following day, Cheng Chumo successfully assumed control of the military camp. With the commander slain, no one dared to resist. The Xuanjia Iron Cavalry stood watch. Any who dared to move would be courting death. Upon returning to the government office to report, Cheng Chumo bowed. The matter is concluded. The Empress Zhongsun nodded, her expression stern. To the capital. Why the urgency from the Empress Zhongsun? Because she had been away for half a month and was now with child, leaving no room for speculation. After half a month, no one would suspect. They would assume she was already pregnant before her departure. However, after another half month, rumors would undoubtedly arise. Did you hear? The Empress Zhongsun returned from a month away and is pregnant. The Empress Zhongsun would not permit such gossip to proliferate, nor would she allow herself to confront Li Shimin. With 5 children already, this would be the 6th. The procession advanced towards Chang'an, Cheng Chumo in tow, while Yuqi Jingda remained behind with 500 Xuanjia Iron Cavalry. On the journey, the carriage jostled violently, causing the Empress Zhongsun to become increasingly nauseous. Cheng Chumo stepped outside, accompanied by craftsmen, and ordered them to sketch a design for a grand sedan chair. They rested for a day while the chair was prepared. Cheng Chumo, alongside 15 Special Forces soldiers, carried the sedan. The Empress Zhongsun no longer felt ill and lavished praise upon Cheng Chumo. You are quite remarkable. Upon our return, I shall request your father to promote you. You dare not refuse, A promotion seemed so simple. The prerequisite was capability, and Cheng Chumo possessed it in abundance. Cheng Chumo felt a surge of excitement at the prospect of advancement, prompting him to hasten. The Empress Zhongsun dozed off, drifting into slumber. Chapter 47. Transporting grain and distributing provisions. The convoy passed through Mo village. A voice, previously silent, spoke up. Prince Consort, I have no further teachings for you. I wish to remain here and enjoy my twilight years. The voice was hoarse and unappealing, with unclear enunciation. Cheng Chumo, taken aback while carrying the sedan, glanced at the distant Mo village and then at the speaker. He disembarked. The Empress Zhongsun remained silent, her interest piqued. Cheng Chumo and the special forces collectively bowed to the individual. Their training concluded, their fates diverged. As the saying goes, a master leads one to the door. But the journey beyond is one's own. The speaker imparted all he could teach. Growth could only be achieved through the crucible of blood. The individual sauntered towards Mo village, exuding an air of nonchalance. Quietly arriving and departing, Cheng Chumo took a deep breath and resumed carrying the sedan, increasing their pace, a form of training in itself. The special forces, unburdened, followed closely with their supplies in tow. Empress Zhongsun observed everything with a sense of satisfaction, nodding in approval. It is how a man should be. Reflecting on her 3 sons, she rubbed her forehead, wishing they could embody the qualities of Cheng Chumo. She felt a tinge of regret over the numerous lessons she imparted to her sons, aware that too many perspectives could lead to discord. After all, 2 tigers cannot coexist on the same mountain, let alone 3. 3 days later, upon returning to Chang'an, 16 grand palanquins entered the city. The Empress, seated with regal composure, placed her hands on her abdomen, transforming back into the dignified matriarch of the empire. Upon arriving at the palace, Emperor Li Shimin personally awaited her, his face alight with excitement. Seeing his Guanyin maid arrive in a palanquin, he expressed his delight at Cheng Chumo. He laughed heartily, proclaiming that with the god of war carrying the palanquin, his offspring would surely surpass the previous generation. After speaking, he assisted the Empress in dismounting. The Empress shot Li Shimin a glance, her expression one of mild reproach. Flattery will get you nowhere. I am weary and need to rest. Li Shimin dutifully attended to her like a palace eunuch, while Cheng Chumo turned his head away, silently cursing his shamelessness. In response, Li Shimin gave him a swift kick, commanding him to proceed to the dining hall. Cheng Chumo followed the emperor back. In the dining hall, Li Shimin, with a smirk, remarked, "You certainly know how to hide." It seemed a reckoning was in order. The empress huffed, prompting Li Shimin to quickly alter his demeanor. Chumo has indeed contributed, he acknowledged. But the empress remained dissatisfied and ignored his words, recalling her promise to promote Cheng Chumo. Li Shimin turned to Cheng Chumo, instructing him to prepare for an expedition, assigning him the task of transporting military provisions, and urging him to depart early. Contrary to the empress's wishes, Cheng Chumo did not receive a promotion. After the meal, he took his leave and returned to his fief, which had been tidied up and was in a pristine state. The special forces were busy setting up windmills, ready to commence work upon his return. Cheng Chumo offered assistance, and once everything was arranged, he urged them to prepare for the expedition. Yes, the special forces responded. And Cheng Chumo called for Xia Zhu to send provisions and cloth to Mo village. Xia Zhu complied. Cheng Chumo then sought out Sun He, who was inspecting crossbow bolts. Upon seeing Cheng Chumo, he reported, "These bolts are qualified. The bowstrings are made from deer tendons, with sufficient lethality." Cheng Chumo examined the equipment, noting the compact crossbows that were easy to load, capable of firing 3 rounds at once, with each soldier equipped with 21 arrows. The weapons comprised curved sabers, 2 per person, though due to time constraints, Sun he had not yet produced all the necessary arms, including a dagger and 5 throwing knives. The armor was light, paired with black robes and masks of black cloth. The military provisions were ample, stocked with dried beef. "Distribute the weapons," Cheng Chumo commanded. Sun he nodded in agreement. Cheng Chumo then collaborated with Sun he to create a simple distiller, producing a gourd of alcohol, ready for the journey ahead. On the 3rd day, the transport officer arrived at the fief. "The troops have yet to mobilize, but the provisions must precede them. We are set to depart." Cheng Chumo was prepared, entrusting the management of his fief to Wu Shun, with Xia Zhu accompanying the army. The route had been meticulously mapped out, with Cheng Chumo primarily tasked with escorting the provisions. As the convoy set off, it snaked forward like a dragon, its head and tail obscured from view. The journey was eerily quiet, with no one daring to provoke danger. Upon reaching the Hunan Road, they entered the most desolate region of the Tang dynasty, worse than Yuzhou. In recent years, the area had endured relentless locust plagues and droughts. The Turks had advanced from Hunan to the banks of the Weishui River, and this land bore the scars of war, with remnants of destruction still visible. The common people suffered greatly. Fertile lands yielded little sustenance, and the meager harvests were taxed heavily. While not devoid of life, the area was sparsely populated, with many fleeing families having journeyed for 6 months, hoping to reach the prosperous capital, Chang'an, rumored to be free from starvation. Cheng Chumo's expression darkened as he witnessed the multitude of refugees, their clothing in tatters. He possessed an abundance of provisions, yet felt utterly powerless. He dared not distribute the grain, for it was military rations. What would become of the troops if he relinquished it? Without defeating the Turks, the borders of the Tang would remain unsettled, causing further suffering for the civilians. Taking a deep breath, he rubbed his already reddened eyes. As a modern soldier, he could not bear to witness such scenes. Gritting his teeth, he made a decision. He would distribute the grain. Release the grain, Cheng Chumo declared emphatically. The transport officers were not solely under his command, and the decision rested with more than just him. A scholar interjected, "My lord, we cannot. These are military provisions meant for the front lines." Unmoved, Cheng Chumo remained resolute in his determination to release the grain, fully aware of the consequences of his actions. Gazing at the distant disaster victims, he became even more convinced of his stance. Even if he could not provide them with abundance, he would ensure they survived to reach Chang'an. "I will take responsibility if anything goes awry," he asserted. "You cannot bear the consequences," a military officer warned. "All are against the release of provisions." "My lord, military supplies are a sacred taboo," Xia Zhu cautioned. In the distance, a frail woman clutched her child, her cracked lips whispering, "Hold on, my child. We will reach Chang'an, where you will grow up." Surrounding her were others from her village, aware that the child had long since perished. "Let us bury the child," someone suggested. The woman tightened her grip on the child, refusing to let anyone see. "No, my child is not dead. You are deceiving me." Compassion flickered in the eyes of those around her. Spotting Cheng Chumo's convoy, she rushed forward, stumbling thrice, each time landing on her back, her face radiating a glimmer of hope as if she had seen a chance for her child's survival. Reaching Cheng Chumo's horse, she looked up at him with hopeful eyes. "General, can you spare me a few grains of food? I beg you. My child is starving and has not eaten in days." Overcome by the stench, Cheng Chumo, unable to hold back his tears, dismounted and gazed at the mother, then at her tightly wrapped child. He looked toward the sun and declared, "Release the grain. Anyone who disobeys shall be executed." The special forces unsheathed their curved sabers, and a heavy silence enveloped the scene. Dissent would be met with death. The woman, in a fit of madness, laughed hysterically, unaware of her child's fate. Yet she sensed a change, the bluish hue of her child's face slowly gaining color. "Thank you," she whispered before collapsing, still clutching her child. Chapter 48. Bloodshed at the border city. Provisions were distributed along the way. The transport officers gathered, knowing the grain was not released by their command, yet they too faced dire consequences. They collectively turned to Cheng Chumo. "How many troops do we have?" Cheng Chumo inquired. A military officer stood and replied, 8,000. Cheng Chumo resolved, why must the citizens of the Tang always bear the brunt of loss? If we give provisions to the people, we must find a solution. "How far is it to the Tuyuhan border?" Cheng Chumo asked again. 50 miles, an official answered. "Your Highness, we cannot proceed. That would deviate us from our route," another official cautioned. Officials could surmise the intentions of Cheng Chumo. Upon arrival, if questioned above, they would claim to have been raided by the Tuyuhan. Such occurrences have transpired before. They are hardly novel. The entire army advanced towards the Tuyuhan border, with orders to execute any disobedient soldiers. Cheng Chumo issued his commands decisively. Indeed, all were expected to comply. Perhaps this strategy might indeed prove effective. After all, Cheng Chumo had powerful allies who could potentially intercede on his behalf. Furthermore, the military provisions had not all been distributed, with a substantial stock remaining. The front line could manage with ration supplies. The troops, laden with provisions, hastened towards the border, making remarkable progress and reaching it within a day. 20 miles away lay the Tuyuhan border city. Cheng Chumo commanded the army to rest. That night, Cheng Chumo stealthily ventured into the border city to survey the area. Inspecting the various city gates, the hoof prints were abundant, indicating a significant military presence. Upon returning to the camp, he summoned his special forces and all officials. I shall carry out a decapitation operation against the Tuyuhan. Set fire as a signal. When the city ignites, you shall lead your men to invade. Anyone who dares to show cowardice shall be executed, Cheng Chumo declared. The officials nodded in agreement. After all, they were already facing death, so it was better to let Cheng Chumo take the reins. He was a viscount, after all, and of high rank. Cheng Chumo infiltrated the border city with his men, locating the lord's residence. Observing the low walls, he chuckled, noting the disparity between neighboring states and the grandeur of the Tang dynasty. Even the walls of a landlord's estate in Tang were superior. With a wave of his hand, the special forces infiltrated in threes. However, they were soon discovered. Kill! Cheng Chumo bellowed, drawing his curved blade and charging forth. The attack was utterly unforeseen. The guards of the lord's residence were caught off guard, offering disorganized resistance. Cheng Chumo stormed into the main courtyard, where a disheveled rotund man was attempting to flee. A single stroke from Cheng Chumo dispatched him. This is dire. The lord is dead. Someone shouted, and chaos erupted within the lord's residence. Set the fire. Cheng Chumo roared. The special forces hastened to ignite the flames. After securing the area, Cheng Chumo exited the lord's residence and continued his assault, slaying anyone in sight. The entire border city had become a battleground, devoid of any civilian presence. Outside the city, upon witnessing the inferno within, the officials secretly admired Cheng Chumo's audacity. He truly possesses a fierce nature. The assault commenced. The city gates had already been breached by the special forces, allowing the army to pour in unhindered. A special forces soldier found the officials and relayed. The Viscount commands a citywide slaughter. The officials shuddered. Like father, like son, they thought. We obey. The massacre began, plunging the border city into chaos. As the defensive forces could only scatter to resist. Once divided, they became easy prey for the special forces. Cheng Chumo, wielding dual curved blades, fought his way from the eastern city to the western and then to the northern city, his body drenched in blood. An enemy commander charged at Cheng Chumo, who, bloodied and fierce, resembled a vengeful spirit. Kill! He roared. The enemy commander's steed collapsed, lifeless. The commander scrambled to his feet and fled, casting aside his weapon. Wishing he had 4 legs to escape faster, Cheng Chumo relentlessly pursued him, blocking his path. Stop! The enemy commander screamed in terror. A nearby soldier, unaware of the situation, was slain by Cheng Chumo's blade. Come at me, he thundered. The special forces began to converge on Cheng Chumo's location. The enemy commander dashed into a storage facility. Do not approach. There is grain here. If you come any closer, I will set it ablaze. Release me, and I will provide you with provisions. The commander, in a moment of desperation, made this absurd proposal. Release you? Do you possess fire? Cheng Chumo retorted. The commander was momentarily stunned, and in that instant, his life was forfeit. Cheng Chumo rushed forward, raising his blade. Out of breath, he muttered, Fool, how could I see you without fire? The special forces had already surged past. Cheng Chumo rose. Secure this area, he commanded before continuing his rampage. The slaughter persisted throughout the night. The flames consuming the lord's residence eventually extinguished, signaling the end of the massacre. The streets were strewn with corpses. Cheng Chumo sat beneath the Tang flag, exclaiming, Viscount, we have struck it rich. One official remarked. They had acquired an abundance of grain, double the military rations, and untold wealth. It could only be said that the Tuyuhan were unfortunate. They had secretly stockpiled grain here to launch an assault on the Tang dynasty. But little did they know that Cheng Chumo, in dire straits, had set his sights on them, resulting in their misfortune benefiting him. Take everything. The grain must be transported away within half a day. Whoever seizes the wealth in the city may claim it as their own. The soldiers' eyes gleamed with fervor. Their fatigue forgotten, they began to transport the grain. Until all provisions were moved, they could not take anything else. 8,000 men looted the city, a sight more fearsome than a locust swarm. By midday, the border city was utterly cleansed. A great fire blazed behind them as Cheng Chumo and his men departed. Gazing at the thousands of war horses, Cheng Chumo felt a surge of excitement. He had once endured a beating for merely 500 steeds. War indeed was the quicker path to fortune. I must write a memorial, he declared, and Xiaozhu hurriedly produced paper and pen. After completing the task, he sighed. So tiresome, and dozed off atop his horse. In Chang'an, the ministers seethed with rage. Li Shimin's face darkened like iron, struggling to suppress his fury. Cheng Chumo, you court death. Li Shimin had already learned that Cheng Chumo had distributed the grain, which was military provision. Without provisions, how could one wage war? A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity was squandered over military supplies. Cheng Chumo was doomed. Cheng Chumo must be executed, declared Changsun Wuji, with the ministers collectively agreeing. An urgent messenger entered the grand hall, racing with a report. Messengers were never obstructed, especially during urgent situations. Speak, Li Shimin commanded. The messenger produced a memorial, handing it to Li Shimin. A sense of melancholy washed over Li Shimin. What good could it do? He opened the document, his expression shifting from peculiar to ecstatic. Huh. Well done. Splendid work. The ministers were bewildered as Li Shimin shared the memorial with them. After reading, their expressions mirrored his initial confusion, followed by uproarious laughter. The memorial presented by Cheng Chumo did not acknowledge his distribution of grain. Instead, he accused the Tiohan of stealing provisions, asserting that he had fought valiantly for the emperor, cleansing the border city with blood. Not only had he reclaimed the grain, but he had also thwarted the Tiohan's plans to ambush the Tang dynasty. The military supplies had doubled since their departure, along with 1,000 steeds. Nothing else was mentioned. He claimed that he fought as if aided by divine forces, attributing his success to the unborn princess in the empress's womb cheering him on. Such flattery was masterfully executed. How could Cheng Duolai know whether the empress carries a boy or a girl? Wei Zhen questioned. That is not the focus, Li Shimin replied. At that moment, no one dared to challenge Cheng Chumo. With the grain doubled, the Tang dynasty could now field twice its previous strength. That was the crux of the matter. 300,000 troops would advance in 3 columns against the Eastern Turks, with Li Jing at the helm. The military officials bowed in unison, while the civil ministers remained silent. During the times of conflict, it is best not to interject when Li Shimin is engaged in battle. That would be courting death. Chapter 49. One more heist. After the court session, Li Shimin arrived at the Lijing Hall. Empress Changsun was engrossed in her embroidery, with an array of fruits laid out on the table. She paid them no heed, having had her fill. A palace maid brought forth a dish. Your Majesty, would you care for a taste of this fatty intestine? The empress sampled it, finding it quite palatable, and instructed Wu Shun to prepare it again for the following day. These delicacies had been meticulously prepared by Cheng Chumo, who had commissioned the finest chefs in Chang'an before his departure, spending lavishly on a menu. It was said that the chef wept at his execution, pleading to remain in the fief to cook, unwilling to leave as the warfare was too fierce. Li Shimin took his seat, intent on enjoying a meal, but the empress moved the dish aside, denying him. Your Majesty has concluded court. What brings you to my quarters? Her tone was oddly peculiar. Li Shimin was accustomed to such behavior. It was typical of the empress during her pregnancies, which he had witnessed on 5 occasions. During her first pregnancy with Li Chengxian, he was away on military campaigns. Guanyin maid, Cheng Chumo has caused trouble outside, Li Shimin remarked. The empress curled her lips skeptically. Cheng Chumo causing trouble? Impossible. He must be framed. She pushed the fatty intestine toward Li Shimin. You should eat. The empress was preparing to plead for Cheng Chumo, using the dish to silence Li Shimin. His ploy succeeded. Upon tasting, he recognized the flavor. Li Shimin had a strong palate, preferring raw delicacies, such as deer intestines dipped in blood, quite raw indeed. Erlang, you must investigate thoroughly. That lad Cheng Chumo is no troublemaker. I can vouch for him. The empress poured tea for Li Shimin. He felt a sense of helplessness. His Guanyin maid was indeed biased. He was relieved that Cheng Chumo was resourceful, managing to distribute grain and even engage in raids elsewhere. Should there be any repercussions for Cheng Chumo, the Guanyin maid might cause quite a ruckus. Li Shimin recounted the events. The empress's countenance darkened. I knew it. It must be someone slandering Cheng Chumo. Erlang, find out who did this. I shall deal with them. After speaking, she gestured to the eunuchs. Go summon Wei Zheng and the others. Li Shimin quickly intervened. Erlang, rewards must follow merit. Cheng Chumo's procurement of such ample grain is a significant achievement. He is indeed diligent. The empress remarked. In the Tang dynasty, political maneuvering within the imperial harem is learned from Empress Changsun. The rise of a female emperor is largely attributable to her efforts, elevating the status of the harem immensely. Li Shimin surprisingly nodded. Rewards must be granted. Once the war concludes, I anticipate it will be within a year. The empress smiled in agreement. For no one understood warfare better than Li Shimin. While the war god Li Jing was formidable, it was Li Shimin who grasped the broader picture. At that moment, Cheng Chumo was marching swiftly, having wasted considerable time on detours to ensure he arrived in Xiangzhou on schedule. The grain convoy had developed a tacit understanding. Cheng Chumo's word was law, and they complied willingly. Just days prior, they had received verbal commendation from Li Shimin. The front of the convoy encountered disaster-stricken civilians once more. This time, no orders were needed from Cheng Chumo. The officials directly distributed grain, each more generous than the last. Ahead lay the Yellow River. Successfully crossing, it would mark a complete triumph in grain transportation. The officials approached Cheng Chumo. Your Highness, we have distributed much grain along the way. Should we not undertake another venture in Gansu? Gansu, a crucial passage along the Silk Road, bordering 2 nations, the impoverished Tubo and the Western Turks. Cheng Chumo nodded. Then let us undertake another venture. We shall leave the grain here and proceed lightly, sending word to the military in Xiangzhou to collect it. Cheng Chumo dared not allow local officials to hoard the grain. They were gluttons, so it was wiser to inform the station troops in Xiangzhou. The officials consented, and all preparations were made. Cheng Chumo, with 8,000 men, set forth directly to Gansu. Gansu was small but historically significant, a strategic location since ancient times. The need for courage was paramount. If one did not dare, no one would stand strong for them, and if one could not fight, they would be fought against. To the west lay Tubo, ever intent on capturing individuals from Gansu to acquire Tang technology. To the northeast were the Western Turks, who, when their years were poor, would raid Gansu for resources. Upon arriving in Gansu, Ching Chumo gazed at the yellow earth with dismay. Development there was challenging. The local officials were thrilled to see Ching Chumo, relieved that the Tang had not forgotten them. Finally, someone had come, especially the esteemed son of Cheng Yaojin. This was a significant acknowledgement. In the government office, Ching Chumo inquired, "Is Gansu peaceful lately?" The officials' faces turned grim. Peaceful? Gansu has never known peace. They began to explain the local situation. Upon hearing their accounts, Cheng Chumo slammed his hand on the table. Does Tubo wish for death? They defeated the Gansu garrison using an intriguing tactic, the fire oxen formation. They are clearly studying the three kingdoms. I have decided to perform a surgical strike on Tubo. The officials were exhilarated. Another campaign was about to commence. Without hesitation, they dispatched scouts to track Tubo's main forces. Ching Chumo focused on the oxen. One may question Tubo's leadership, but their yaks are beyond reproach. Locating their main force revealed only a mere 10,000 troops. Their military was peculiar, unlike the Tang army. They operated under a slave system. One individual drove a throng of slaves, who lived alongside the oxen, herding slaves and cattle simultaneously. In Ching Chumo's eyes, this was a feast. What would happen if the slaves revolted against Tubo? He mused. The officials' eyes brightened. A slave uprising would be akin to self-mutilation for Tubo, rendering them incapable of supporting the Turks, let alone defending themselves. It is feasible, one of them replied. Ching Chumo smiled. Then let us proceed. He turned to the Gansu officials. Bring me a batch of burlap sacks. The Tubo slaves were clad in burlap. Ching Chumo intended to disguise himself as a slave inciting rebellion. How much grain does Gansu possess? Ching Chumo continued. 100,000 shur, replied the local officials. Allocate 10,000 shur for transport, Ching Chumo instructed. The officials, being astute, understood this was for the rebellion. Why only 10,000 shur? It was simple. Slaves must not be fully fed. If they were, they would not continue to revolt. Ching Chumo, along with special forces, donned burlap sacks and mingled with the slaves. The conditions for the slaves were dire, their rations akin to that of cattle, with little grain provided. Ching Chumo felt no sympathy. He was a soldier of the Tang, not of Tubo. Sympathy must be directed appropriately. I demand food. Ching Chumo bellowed. The slaves stared at him as if he were a fool. Food. Ching Chumo felt awkward. This would not do. These slaves had been enslaved for generations. They did not see themselves as human, but merely as commodities for their masters. The plan faltered. Ching Chumo could only change one. He gazed at the distant tent, the residence of the slave master. With a swift motion, he cast aside the burlap and sprinted towards the tent, followed closely by the special forces, brandishing their curved blades. Bursting into the tent, they found the slave master toying with a female slave. Ching Chumo seized the slave master's hair and dragged him outside, eliciting a terrified scream from the man. Ching Chumo smirked, commanding him to gather his slaves. Under duress, the slave master complied, instructing them that they would henceforth belong to Ching Chumo. With a knife poised at the slave master's throat, he ordered, "Kill them." The slave master's anguished roar echoed as the slaves, indifferent, surged toward Ching Chumo. In one swift action, he dispatched the slave master, and the slaves stood still, collapsing to the ground. They had exchanged masters. Chapter 50. The ruthless slaves indeed. The slaves were obedient, provided their master could still speak. Once he was dead, they would change allegiance. Having dealt with one slave master, Ching Chumo proceeded to the next. Employing the same tactics, disguised in burlap, he executed a decapitation operation. In a single day, he eliminated 50 slave masters and gained control over thousands of slaves. Ching Chumo gathered the slaves together, and the special forces began distributing food. The slaves accepted it, squatting on the ground to eat. After their fill, their gazes towards Ching Chumo transformed. It was their first experience of fullness. Whoever ensured their sustenance became their master. Ching Chumo was both their master and their benefactor. Do you wish to be full? Follow me to seize, and I guarantee you will never go hungry again. The slaves could not comprehend his words, nor could they speak. Distribute weapons, he commanded the special forces. Ching Chumo raised his hand, and the slaves, armed, stood up like emotionless machines, regardless of age. Ching Chumo led the way, with them following behind. 3 days passed without encountering a single Tibetan city. At that time, Tibet was devoid of cities, resembling the Turks in their sparsely populated, nomadic existence across vast lands. This method was ineffective. Even exhaustion would not yield results. They decided to lie in wait for an opportunity. Upon discovering a large mountain, Ching Chumo set it ablaze, convinced that no one would resist the allure of a spectacle. Yet, no one appeared. The mountain burned without a soul in sight. Ching Chumo despaired, questioning the situation. A Gansu official remarked, "Your Highness, there are no people here. They seldom approach the border." "Withdraw," Ching Chumo replied decisively, deeming it unnecessary to squander time in such a place. He returned to Gansu, accompanied by numerous yaks. At the governor's office, Ching Chumo inquired, "How far is the Turkic stronghold from here?" 100 miles away, the Gansu official replied. Ching Chumo rose, declaring, "If we cannot locate Tibetan cities, then we shall strike at the Turks." With 18,000 men, he advanced toward the Turkic tribes. Upon spotting Ching Chumo's troops, the Turks laughed, dismissing them as mere suppliers. Questioning the audacity of infantry on the plains, they dispatched scattered cavalry to harass him. However, Cheng Chumo was unperturbed by the scattered horsemen, engaging them with his special forces. The Turkic cavalry excelled in mounted archery, but the special forces were not lacking. While their archery was somewhat lacking, their equestrian skills were proficient. The battle was reciprocated fiercely. The Turks abandoned their harassment and began to regroup. Seeing the Turkic forces assemble, Cheng Chumo smirked. Scatter, he commanded, realizing he had no choice. He was unafraid of a large-scale cavalry charge. Prepare the caltrops. The Turks did not attack, and Cheng Chumo remained patient, waiting for a heavy rain. 3 days later, the rain arrived. The grasslands became soaked, making traversal easy, yet perilous when running. Cheng Chumo drove 1,000 yaks forward, draping burlap over their backs and dousing them in oil before igniting them. The yaks, ablaze, charged toward the Turkic camp, which housed many cavalrymen. The Turkic horsemen attempted to intercept, but were unsuccessful. Some steeds slipped, while others fell into the caltrops. The slaves seized the yaks and slaughtered them, scattering the Turkic cavalry. Attack! Cheng Chumo commanded. The slaves, alongside 8,000 Tang soldiers, raised their weapons and charged. Cheng Chumo led the charge but regretted not bringing a polearm. Reflecting that if he had won, the cavalry would be insignificant. The battle was chaotic. Cheng Chumo yearned to fight but found himself shielded by the slaves. For the first time, he witnessed the slaves charge into battle. What fierceness! This was true ruthlessness. It was a one-for-one approach. The most brutal individuals are not those who are inherently cruel, but those who do not regard themselves as human. They were oblivious to their humanity, viewing their opponents as less than human. To kill one was to gain. This was the slave army, ruthless to an abhorrent degree. Some slaves had their legs trampled yet crawled forward, while others clung to the necks of Turkic soldiers, biting, indifferent to the wounds they sustained. Their singular focus was to annihilate the enemy. The Turks, struck with terror, began to flee. The barefooted were unafraid of those in shoes, especially since the slaves lacked even clothing. The Turks were routed, and the surviving slaves raised their weapons in triumph, earning the respect of the Tang army. It was the first time they had witnessed such speed. As they scoured the battlefield and counted their numbers, they found over 2,000 slaves had perished. Buried on the spot, Cheng Chumo led everyone toward Xiazhou, deeming a return to Gansu unnecessary. Along the way, soldiers distributed their surplus clothing to the slaves, teaching them to weave grass sandals. Shave their heads, Cheng Chumo instructed. The ranks now boasted 8,000 bald heads, devoid of the disheveled hair. The slaves appeared far more presentable. Clad in clothing, their spirits lifted. The slaves' gazes remained as tranquil as ever, only wavering upon seeing Cheng Chumo. A look of reverence akin to that afforded to a deity. Their master provided them with food, ensuring their fullness. Crossing the grasslands, they seized whatever they encountered, killing anyone in sight. The path they traversed bore no sign of life. Some slaves even resorted to cannibalism, subdued by Cheng Chumo's whip. Their strength grew with each conquest, accumulating ever more resources. They had gathered over 1,000 war horses and thousands of cattle and sheep by the time they reached the border town of Xiazhou. Cheng Chumo, mounted, surveyed the town's defenses, noting the trembling soldiers. What manner of men are these? They do not resemble Turks. The Turks would not dare approach in such numbers. They typically sent only a few to scout. The town's defenders eyed the 8,000 bald heads with trepidation, their expressions revealing fear. Confused by the sight of 8,000 Tang soldiers, they speculated, has a Tang soldier defected? Cheng Chumo, frowning, lamented, they have dallied for an hour, refusing us entry. Open the gates swiftly. My father is Cheng Yaojin, and I am Cheng Chumo. The town's defenders were skeptical, questioning how it was possible for Cheng Chumo to come from the Western Turks, accompanied by 8,000 bald heads. In the Tang, only monks are bald. With no other option, he resolved to seek Cheng Yaojin in Xiazhou. Upon receiving the news, Cheng Yaojin wore a sardonic smile. His son was in Gansu. It was unexpected that the supplies had arrived without him. He mused that his son was just as unreliable as himself. I shall go confront that mountain cannon. Daring to impersonate my son, Cheng Yaojin arrived at the border town and was taken aback when he laid eyes on Cheng Chumo. Truly, it was astonishing. As the city gates were opened, Cheng Chumo finally entered. The moment he set foot inside, he lodged a complaint. Father, that rascal wouldn't let me enter the city. You must teach him a lesson. The young officer was nearly in tears. Cheng Yaojin nodded. Rest assured, my son, I shall certainly deal with him. The two of them were cut from the same cloth, both eager to strike the young officer. Cheng Yaojin inquired about the unfolding events, and once Cheng Chumo had explained, he burst into laughter, hands on his hips. My lineage, what do you all say? Is it formidable? The other martial generals echoed his sentiment. Secretly admiring Cheng Yaojin's parenting skills, they resolved to learn from him, starting with a good thrashing of their own sons. Father, my 8,000 slaves lack equipment. Could you see to it? Cheng Chumo asked. No problem, leave it to me. I am the chief in Xiazhou. Would you prefer light armor or heavy armor? Cheng Yaojin replied without hesitation. Light armor will suffice, Cheng Chumo responded. The other generals breathed a sigh of relief. Thankfully, Cheng Chumo was not greedy. For light armor was easier to procure, while heavy armor required formal reports. Chapter 51, To the Front Lines. Tomorrow I shall officially recommend it. Thank you to the friends who have read this far. The martial generals departed. Cheng Yaojin asked a few more questions, and Cheng Chumo answered truthfully. Cheng Yaojin then playfully slapped the back of Cheng Chumo's head, who stared blankly at him. Haha, I struck with ease. You should take a stroll in Xiaozhou. Cheng Yaojin departed, hands behind his back, looking quite pleased with himself. Cheng Chumo snapped back to reality, rubbing his head. Oh no, how could I have gotten hit? I must be more cautious in the future. Xia Zhu entered, her expression somewhat unnatural. What troubles you? Cheng Chumo inquired, concealing her understanding. She pondered how to articulate her request. Xiazhou was her birthplace, and being here brought forth many memories, most importantly, of her foster parents. Hesitant, she finally mustered the courage to ask, Master, could you save my foster parents? Her voice dwindled to a whisper as Cheng Chumo's actions along their journey had instilled fear in her, making him seem like a stranger. He had massacred a city, his eyes devoid of emotion while killing, a blatant disregard for life. Very well, Cheng Chumo replied. This is merely a favor. The Eastern Turks have surrendered, and Khan Ili has been taken to Chang'an, leaving few nobles alive. The Tang dynasty has established a protectorate, and those nobles remain as lords of the grasslands. The common folk suffer, and the downfall of the commoners is equally tragic. Strive forward. Every dynasty is alike. Only by ascending to nobility can one escape all injustices. Xiazhu was taken aback by Cheng Chumo's agreement, unable to believe it. She wiped her tears, laughing and crying simultaneously. Cheng Chumo shook his head. What ails you? Money can resolve it. Where's Liang Shidu's treasure? Cheng Chumo inquired. In a desolate mountain, Xiazhu replied. Cheng Chumo resolved to excavate the treasure. Before he could leave, a guard announced, Liang Luoren seeks an audience. No time, Cheng Chumo replied, fully aware of who Liang Luoren was. He was Liang Shidu's brother, the one who had betrayed Liang Shidu. A model of righteous betrayal. Cheng Chumo found it difficult to form an opinion of him. On one hand, he was ungrateful. Yet he had contributed to the Tang dynasty, saving many lives in the process. On the other hand, if he could betray his own cousin, what other disloyalty might he commit? Cheng Chumo had no desire to associate with such a person. As he and Xiazhu exited the parlor, Cheng Chumo showed no pretense, immediately departing after stating he had no time. His status did not necessitate cultivating relationships with officials like Liang Luoren. Just outside, Liang Luoren hurriedly followed. Greetings, Prince Cheng. He called out. Cheng Chumo was speechless. How shameless can one be? Speak quickly. Liang Luoren smiled. The rumors proving true, Cheng Chumo was indeed difficult to approach. He dared not waste words and produced a gift scroll for Cheng Chumo. Xiazhu took a glance and whispered, Master, this is quite a substantial offering. As expected, to present too little to Cheng Chumo would be courting disaster. It was better not to present anything at all. Liang Luoren would not make such a blunder. The gift is accepted, but if you wish for my assistance, state your request. I can accomplish nothing, Cheng Chumo said with a smile. Liang Luoren was taken aback, but soon regained his composure and laughed heartily. Haha, I merely seek to befriend you. Cheng Chumo nodded. Now we are friends. When you visit Chang'an, you may invite me to dine. With that, Cheng Chumo continued on his way. Xiazhu could not suppress a laugh. Master, you are quite humorous. She teased. Cheng Chumo shot her a sharp glare, prompting her to quickly cover her mouth, eyes brimming with apology. Upon reaching the military camp, they summoned special forces and headed straight for the desolate mountain Xiazhu had mentioned. Dig, Cheng Chumo commanded. The task proved too arduous for one person, so they enlisted 8,000 slaves, significantly hastening the excavation. In 3 days, the hill was nearly leveled, and an entrance finally emerged. After a day of letting the site settle, Cheng Chumo ventured inside. The ancient tomb lacked numerous traps. The most common was a soil collapse mechanism designed to thwart excavators. The loose earth was soft, and any negligence could lead to a cave-in, burying tomb raiders alive. Such mechanisms were intended for small-time thieves. Large-scale excavations like Cheng Chumo's would not encounter this issue. For example, the measures taken for the tomb of Qin Shi Huang involved mercury, rendering arrows and other weapons irrelevant. Upon entering the burial chamber, Cheng Chumo was met with a bounty of treasures, with no other contents to be found. Xiazhu began to catalog the findings, while Cheng Chumo explored another chamber filled with weapons and a slab of black iron. This discovery greatly intrigued Cheng Chumo. He did not examine the weapons closely, deeming them unremarkable. Instead, he focused on the slab of iron, which felt icy to the touch, and upon moving it, frost formed where it met the ground. This was the legendary celestial black iron, possessing immense density. He returned to Xiazhou with the gold and silver treasures to find Cheng Yaojin. Father, I have located a cache of gold. Could you send someone to assist in transporting it? Cheng Chumo requested. Cheng Yaojin paid little mind, readily agreeing. Father, I wish to go to the front lines, Cheng Chumo added. Cheng Yaojin nodded, unlike other fathers. Are the weapons prepared? Cheng Chumo inquired once more. Cheng Yaojin's expression darkened. Is this not yet finished? There are so many matters to attend to. Go. Cheng Chumo was scolded and left. Upon arriving at the military camp, he found a plethora of weapons stacked high, light armor and long spears. Distribute these. We shall head to the front lines tomorrow, Cheng Chumo commanded. The special forces complied. A group of officials arrived at the military camp, all transportation officers for the supplies. After delivering the grain to Xiazhou, they had little else to do. Following Cheng Chumo for a while, they found themselves restless, constantly yearning for action. Today, they sought out Cheng Chumo, hoping to accompany him. They were aware that he would not remain idle for long. Once they expressed their intentions, they watched Cheng Chumo, awaiting his response. Are the soldiers willing? He inquired. The officials eagerly nodded. The soldiers were indeed keen, for following Cheng Chumo promised prosperity. As the saying goes, fortune often favors the bold. While excelling may be challenging, acquiring wealth was certainly within reach. Very well, prepare yourselves. We shall set off light tomorrow, Cheng Chumo commanded. The officials complied. But they knew that departing without military orders was not feasible. They needed provisions. If questioned, they would simply state they were transporting grain. The following day, the convoy departed from the border city. Cheng Chumo decided to forge a new path. Following Li Jing, they barely had time to drink. After 3 days of travel, they finally encountered their first wave of enemies, hundreds of Turkic soldiers, with the remainder comprising the elderly, women, and children, surrounding them. Cheng Chumo issued the command for the special forces to charge. As they encircled the enemy, a woman, not yet 30, descended from a carriage. She exuded an imposing presence. Graceful in her demeanor, she was not of Turkic descent. Cheng Chumo approached on horseback, puzzled. Who is she? Before the woman could respond, the Turkic soldiers drew their weapons to break free. The distance was too close, prompting the special forces to fire their short crossbows. After a volley, only about 20 managed to escape. Cheng Chumo refrained from pursuing. Without bait, one cannot fish. Searching for enemies on the vast grasslands would be exhausting. The best strategy was to let them come to him. He turned to the woman. Are you of Tang descent? The woman remained unresponsive. Cheng Chumo grew more perplexed. In this era, who but a Tang woman could possess such elegance? Chapter 52. Xiao Mingyang, who are you? The woman possessed an air of authority, her demeanor rivaling that of Empress Chang's son. Ignoring Cheng Chumo's inquiry, her gaze swept over the crowd. Whose subordinate are you? She inquired softly, her voice carrying an unspoken authority. Cheng Chumo deduced that she was a woman accustomed to positions of power. Could she be a princess sent to marry during the late Sui dynasty? A princess would dare to address Cheng Chumo in such a manner? Moreover, the Sui dynasty had long since ended. Observing those in the carriage, both men and women, all clad in Turkic attire, he pointed his whip towards them. Who are you? Despite their fear, they remained silent, casting glances at a woman in her 40s. Well-preserved, but unable to conceal the marks of time. The woman rose and spoke extensively. Cheng Chumo smiled. It seemed they were of the Turkic royal family, making matters straightforward. Eliminate them all, he commanded. The special forces complied, disregarding the cries of the others, leaving only the woman alive. Her complexion turned pale, yet she maintained her composure. Cheng Chumo, losing patience, ordered, kill. Just as the special forces prepared to act, Xia Zhu rode up alongside Cheng Chumo and whispered, Master, she is Empress Xiao. Cheng Chumo stared in disbelief at the woman. Empress Xiao? Xiao Mingyang. She appeared no older than 30. Are you certain? Cheng Chumo asked. Xia Zhu began to explain, lamenting the master's ignorance. The rumors surrounding Empress Xiao spoke of her ageless beauty. Cheng Chumo had thought such tales were mere fabrications. He was astonished to discover they were true. No wonder she exuded such authority. No wonder she remained composed in crisis. At a loss for how to address her, he pondered whether to dismount and bow, but she was a deposed empress. Should he remain mounted? After all, she was still an empress in title. Whose subordinate are you? Xiao Mingyang inquired again, her curiosity piqued. This young general, ruthless and quick to execute, intrigued her. In truth, Cheng Chumo's willingness to kill brought her a sense of relief. She had long forgotten how many years had passed since her arrival here, enduring bullying from other women. Yet, the most tragic fate lay in the succession of the Turkic throne. After the old king's death, she had been taken into the harem by the young king. A humiliation for a former empress. Lacking the courage to end her life, she had silently endured. I am Cheng Chumo, the eldest son of Cheng Yaojin, he replied. Since she was once an empress, he decided to grant her a modicum of respect. Empress Xiao recognized Cheng Yaojin. During that time, the Sui dynasty had abundant soldiers. Yet they could not conquer even a small place like Wagong. Although Cheng Yaojin was not the most skilled, he was certainly the most ruthless. What do you desire? Empress Xiao's voice softened, fully aware that once she had become a concubine, her dignity would be lost. Since she was already surviving through such indignity, there was no need to feign nobility. Contemplating this, Empress Xiao offered a sorrowful smile. Cheng Chumo found himself in a quandary. Empress Xiao was different. Though she was no longer an empress, her daughter was the imperial consort of Li Shimin. If he were to kill her, would the Empress Yang not seek retribution? It was quite possible. Her grandson was Li Ku, a shrewd individual. He decided to dismiss these thoughts. He would act according to what history dictated. You are now a prisoner, Cheng Chumo stated. Empress Xiao nodded lightly. This was her fate. I need you to guide me. Where's the royal court? Cheng Chumo continued. Provide me with a horse. Empress Xiao had no right to refuse. She wished to witness the demise of the entire Turkic royal family. Having spent so long in the Turkic realm, she rode ahead, leading the way, with Cheng Chumo following closely behind. Xia Zhu whispered, Master. Bringing her back to Chang'an will be a thankless task. Cheng Chumo understood the difficulties involved in such an endeavor. The more he thought about it, the more he sensed a problem. The entire eastern Turkic realm was embroiled in conflict. Why would Empress Xiao's retinue appear in this location? It dawned on him that Li Jing likely wished to avoid blame and had orchestrated this. They called him a military god, but he was quite cunning indeed. Regardless, They would first charge in and claim their achievements. Cheng Chumo resolved that no further contemplation would serve him. The opportunity was in his grasp, and retreat was not an option. After wandering the grasslands for half a month, they finally encountered a large cavalry unit, but alas. It was not the Turkic forces, it was the army of the Tang dynasty. With the introduction of horseshoes, the Tang's warhorses had multiplied exponentially. The two armies converged, led by Li Jing's son, Li Dajiang. Upon seeing Cheng Chumo, he smiled and asked, "What brings you and your infantry here?" Cheng Chumo's expression darkened, shooting him a glare. "Are you looking to be reprimanded?" he retorted. Li Dajiang crossed his arms, wearing an infuriatingly smug expression. Cheng Chumo's face flushed with anger. This scoundrel was nearly 30 and had bullied him in his youth. "Today, let us see who the true grandson is," Cheng Chumo declared loudly. Li Dajiang, brimming with pride, had indeed earned his share of military accolades, choosing not to bicker with the child. "You have indeed achieved remarkable feats, have you not?" Speaking of this, Cheng Chumo becomes incensed. As for military accolades, he encountered only Empress Xiao and her retinue, leaving nothing else to report. "Do you think Empress Xiao was deliberately spared by you?" Cheng Chumo's anger swells. It feels like a betrayal. On the way to the royal court, he obstructed their path. How could Empress Xiao possibly pass through unhindered? It must have been intentional on his part. Li Dajiang leaned closer to Cheng Chumo. "Did you truly capture her? You are remarkably fearless. I am in awe, as I dared not lay a hand on her." Cheng Chumo sighed internally, feeling like a fool. "I cannot falter. There is nothing I, Cheng Chumo, would not dare to seize. Once I return to Chang'an, I shall present her to His Majesty. After all, she is the Empress's mother, a significant accomplishment," Cheng Chumo asserted. Li Dajiang appeared taken aback, as if realizing the truth in his words. A tinge of regret washed over him. "You are ruthless," he remarked, leaving with a grim expression. The two forces continued their advance towards the royal court. For this was to be the final battle. Securing the royal court would simplify matters thereafter. Capturing early Kagan and placating him with a minor position would quell the guerrilla warfare, provided he could be apprehended. This battle had already lingered for half a year. The army of the Tang dynasty was assembling at the eastern Turkic royal city. This was indeed the last stand. Cheng Chumo observed the city walls ahead, his thoughts heavy. He had underestimated the Turkic people. They possessed great fortifications. The royal city was impressive, with walls 10 meters high, constructed of stone. Li Jing did not directly command an assault, but instead ordered the encirclement of the royal city, with siege engines and other large equipment being transported. Upon encountering Li Jing, Cheng Chumo implored, "Uncle Li, allow me to take the lead." Li Jing chuckled, glancing at Cheng Chumo while setting aside his map. "This is not your concern. Your task is to transport provisions." Cheng Chumo fell silent, feeling his uncle had misjudged him. "You shall escort Lady Xiao back to the capital. That too is a significant achievement," Li Jing added. Cheng Chumo offered no response, bowing respectfully before departing the military tent, sighing heavily. There were no opportunities afforded to him. Upon returning to his tent, he resolved to undertake something grand. Special forces must engage in special missions. If Li Jing would not let him lead, he would devise another plan. Chapter 53, The Decapitation Operation. If opportunities do not present themselves, one must create them, while others would surely follow Li Jing's orders. Cheng Chumo was not one to obey blindly. He had his own aspirations. To earn merit, he must strive for recognition. Xiaozhu, devise a method. I must infiltrate the city. Cheng Chumo had chosen the right person. Others might not know how to enter the city, but Xiaozhu did. Having traveled extensively with her adoptive parents, she had visited the royal capital more than once. She was well acquainted with intelligence operations and knew of secret passages. Few were aware of them, but Xiaozhu was one. Yes, they exist. But I cannot guarantee that the passage is still accessible. What if it is blocked? What if someone is lying in wait? Cheng Chumo narrowed his eyes. Just speak plainly. He had no patience for her hesitations. Such caution was unbecoming. There is a secret passage, but I fear danger may await us if we enter. Xiaozhu replied. Cheng Chumo turned to Lady Xiao. Understanding his intent, she knew he wanted her to accompany them, though only Cheng Chumo was aware of the exact purpose. Very well. Lady Xiao was resolute. She would follow his lead. Under the moonlight, the special forces prepared for their mission. Cheng Chumo led his team to a hollowed area. This is the spot, Xiaozhu stated. The special forces cleared the underbrush, revealing a narrow opening that could only accommodate one person at a time, overgrown with weeds, suggesting it had long been neglected. They entered without hesitation. An hour later, the special forces returned. Captain, the space within is considerable. We did not reach the end. Cheng Chumo nodded and led the way deeper inside. Entering the pitch-black cave, no signs of human excavation were discernible. After traversing an unknown distance, the sound of rushing water echoed ahead, reverberating within the cave, somewhat unnerving. Lady Xiao clung to Xiaozhu, visibly frightened. Xiaozhu was not faring much better. Cheng Chumo tightened his grip on his curved dagger, inhaling deeply as he pressed onward. Arriving at the source of the sound, they found an underground river. The path had been washed away by rising waters. Cheng Chumo tossed a stone to gauge the depth. The splash was significant, indicating it was no shallow stream. Fortunately, Cheng Chumo had trained in swimming during his time in Chang'an. Xiaozhu bit her lip. She was a poor swimmer. Climb onto my back, Cheng Chumo instructed. Bending down as Xiaozhu complied. He glanced at Lady Xiao. Unfazed by the water, she leaped into the river and swam effortlessly to the other side. Cheng Chumo followed suit. The underground water was indeed cold. Upon reaching the opposite bank, Xia Zhu's lips turned purple, her body shivering from the chill. It is freezing, she lamented. Cheng Chumo too felt the cold. Hurry, we must move quickly to warm ourselves. They traveled for an indeterminate length when flickers of moonlight appeared ahead. Obstructed by something at the exit. Approaching, they discovered an abandoned well. In ancient times, wells were vast, approximately 5 meters deep, with the narrow wellhead appearing smaller due to later modifications. Cheng Chumo gazed at the wellhead, roughly 10 meters high. Climbing would prove challenging. The special forces began preparing climbing gear. They had ropes and grappling hooks, skills honed during their decapitation missions. After tossing out 4 ropes, one secured firmly, the special forces began their ascent, sending down additional ropes once atop. Thus, Cheng Chumo reached the surface. Observing the surroundings, Lady Xiao's expression shifted. This is the royal palace, she whispered. Perfect. You are familiar with this place, are you not? Cheng Chumo replied, pleased. Having arrived directly at the royal palace made the decapitation operation considerably more convenient. Lady Xiao nodded, leading Cheng Chumo and his team to a chamber. This is where I reside. The layout is similar to that of the Tang dynasty. You seem to have a comfortable life here, Cheng Chumo remarked. Lady Xiao surveyed her surroundings, lost in thought. After a moment, she offered a wry smile. Comfortable? This house was not built for me. The palace's layout resembles that of Chang'an. Lady Xiao explained. The Turkic people held a deep admiration for the Central Plains. Had it not been for the Great Wall, they would have surged forth long ago. Yet, the Great Wall was formidable. Beneath the Ain Mountains lay countless Turkic warriors who yearned to invade the Central Plains. After a brief respite, they donned attire resembling that of the palace guards. Though eunuch garments were available, Cheng Chumo chose not to wear them. The Turkic eunuchs were sent from countries such as Goguryeo. They had not only paid homage to the Huaxia, but had also visited the Turkic territories. Hence, in their minds, their dominion was the largest in the world. Why? Because they had numerous connections. They were related to everyone, and the number of times they had been defeated was too great to count. Their arrogance was not without cause. A powerful lineage indeed, they believed. Once attired, they did not act independently, but accompanied Lady Xiao to the location of the palace guards. The guards were rather lax, for the main forces were stationed on the city walls. In groups of 3, they must not be discovered. Eliminate them all, Cheng Chumo whispered. The special forces dispersed into 3s, while Cheng Chumo and the 2 women remained in place. Xiao Meinyang felt a twinge of anxiety. Could a mere 100 men successfully ambush over 1,000 imperial guards? She glanced at Cheng Chumo, who exuded confidence. If a night raid were to fail, then the existence of the special forces would become unnecessary. The ability to take on 10 foes was a fundamental skill. An hour later, the special forces returned, faintly reeking of blood. Secure the city gates and purge everyone from the palace. Move, Cheng Chumo commanded once more. He intended to gain complete control before dawn. The special forces spread out. Xiao Meinyang led Cheng Chumo and Xia Zhu to the grand hall where the Turkic king resided. There was no dragon throne, only a few documents scattered about. The Turkic leadership differed from that of the Tang. The Turkic leaders served more as a rotating chairperson with limited power, as local leaders held military authority, unlike the centralized power in the Tang dynasty. Upon entering the hall, they found a middle-aged man sitting alone, drowning his sorrows in drink. How dare you enter here? The man glared at them, his mood evidently foul. As they approached, Ili expressed disbelief, pointing at Xiao Meinyang. You, Xiao Meinyang's eyes burned with hatred. What of it? Today is the day you repay your debts for your misdeeds. She spat, recalling how she once felt utterly sullied. Wishing her soul could escape her body, Ili turned his gaze to Cheng Chumo. Who are you? Cheng Chumo stepped closer, scrutinizing him. How dare you sign the Wei River Pact with my father? Speak, how do you wish to die? Cheng Chumo shook his head, disillusioned. He had anticipated a more formidable opponent. Mention of Li Shimin caused Li to rise in fury. Li Shimin is a fool. He gave us wealth only to have us divide it. Li was clearly frustrated. Upon returning to the Turks, the spoils were contested among the leaders, each coveting a larger share, sowing the seeds of division. Division was not the only issue. A locust plague had devastated the pastures, compounding the hardships of an already impoverished land. Chapter 54. One must repay their debts. Li was furious, while Cheng Chumo wore a smug smile. Do you think you can outmaneuver the Huaxia people? You believe you have gained something, but you have merely fallen into a trap. Each minister is shrewd, and you, Li, a mere brute, are unworthy to contend with the Tang. You think you have gained boundless wealth, while Li Shimin appears to suffer losses. In truth, he stands to gain significantly, and ultimately, that wealth will return to him, leaving you with nothing. Is it possible for Yuan Tiangang to predict events 500 years hence? Cheng Chumo asked. No, he merely dug a pit that will remain unsettled for 5 centuries. Such is true cunning. You have not lost unjustly, he added, expressing deep understanding. I too cannot compete with them. Ili stared blankly at Cheng Chumo, bewildered by his words. I will grant you immeasurable wealth if you let me go, he proposed. Cheng Chumo nodded. That is a tempting offer. Where is this wealth? In the storeroom, Ili replied, his heart filled with hope, impressed by the young general. Cheng Chumo turned to Xia Zhu. Do you have any paper? Xia Zhu shook her head, explaining that the paper had become wet while swimming. Cheng Chimo, noticing her white dress, tore a piece from it and placed it on the desk. He then drew a small knife, cutting Yi Li's fingertip. Right, he commanded. Yi Li's mind reeled in confusion. What is happening? Right, Cheng Chimo insisted. After completing the task, Yi Li pressed his fingerprint onto the document. Cheng Chimo inspected it, blew on it gently, and handed it to Xia Zhu. Yi Li attempted to leave, but Cheng Chimo's voice thundered. You stay right there? Who gave you permission to leave? Yi Li turned back, glaring at Cheng Chimo, who feigned ignorance.